Welcome to Journey Through the Gate, your paranormal portal podcast, as we delve into the many questions and wonders brought on by the supernatural experience. What's on the other side of the gate? Let's find out together. Hello, my wonderful people. This chat has been going for 15-20 minutes already. They're having a ball in here. Listen to me. Tonight, I have to give a disclaimer. For everybody in the chat that's ever lived in Jersey, for everybody in the chat who's never visited New Jersey, there's going to be so much Jersey on this episode, we felt the need that we needed to warn you first, because tonight I am welcoming somebody that I just hold dear to my heart, and he's just fantastic. He's got a great background as far as being a broadcaster for the MMA. He has been a stand-up comedian, and he is one fine human being to be out there corresponding and talking and communicating with the dead. Bring in my friend Ron Yacovetti. Come on in here, sweetie.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. I don't know who the guest is tonight, but I'm looking forward to it. So.
Right, here we go. Here we go.
I can fill. Yes, it's a lot of Jersey we're bringing tonight. That's why we're here to tell you that at the end of the tunnel, normally there a light. There's a toll.
There's a freaking toll, man. And there's your first serving of pork roll for the evening. Yeah. There you go. My chat likes bacon, so anybody feels the need to sling bacon out there in the chat, put it out there, because we got some fantastic mods as usual. Love all my mods. Hello, Uncommon Belief. Hello, Jackie. Hello, has anybody seen Sue out there? Mairead, all the way from Scotland tonight, Ron. We've got everybody global here. We've got Australia, New Zealand. We've got the foreign country of New York City, I believe. We've got Aunt Edna. If you feel like putting where you're from, let Ron know where you're from tonight. Throw it down there. Hi, Carol, darling. How you doing? Chris Jarvis, welcome in, everybody. I saw Andrew earlier. If I missed you, I'm sorry. Tonight, you're going to love this. We're going to go on a roller coaster. Now, I'll tell you what. We're used to in this show. Oh, bacon. Thank you, Paradox. I'll take it. We like bacon here, Ron. I hope you don't mind.
No, your chat is off the hook already. Ben Jenkins is awesome, by the way. Thank you to everybody saying hello.
Hi, Ohio and Ben. How you doing, sweetie? Thanks, Jackie, for the bacon. That's, high praise already, Ron. You haven't said anything yet. It's going to be great. So
yeah, I'm done. Good night.
Yep. Have a nice evening, folks. So tonight we're going to do something fun, and Ron doesn't even know it yet, but I thought about, sometimes we'll play, paranormal word association. I'll look at, somebody, I'll just say Bigfoot. You say the first word that pops in your mind. You might say portal. You might say bullshit. You could say whatever pops into your mind. We've done that. That's been fun. Tonight we're going to try something different because Ron has been so many cool places, and I'm talking our beloved Gettysburg. We love Gettysburg here. History. Ron is extremely into history, and also is one of those people that has that reverence for it and the story behind the story, right, Ron? I mean, isn't
Absolutely.
That one of the passions? Tell us a little bit about your hook into that, how that gets you excited, because it does us too. We love it.
Oh, the history is one of the things that you can count on when you go to a historic location and you're looking for, ghosts or evidence of the paranormal. Yes, the history in some places could be flawed. It could be wrong, but for the most part, most of the places, like on a historic register, they'll have a historian or they'll have some available information. And the history is just as fascinating as anything that's in the paranormal docket that's happened and been logged over the years as well. And a lot of times, that's also a tool that may or not, be recognized as such, because if you get certain things that come out of a device, it says a word or whatever, and then you can corroborate that with a historic name that was part of that family that owned that mansion or whatever it was, then that's pretty interesting that you would get a name that was specific to that location at that location versus, just getting a random name, which could still be paranormal effect. But so the history is fascinating. And I always liked just learning about, who was and what was before I was able to be or dwell in that place. It's always interesting, especially with these older 1700, 1800 locations. They're fascinating.
They are, and that's the big thing. I have a lot of people on here too that are really interested in the history. They might have been interested in history and found the paranormal. Now I know your quick story of finding the paranormal. You were living in California, were you not?
Yeah.
And your girlfriend at the time, and you, with all the channels on the TV, couldn't find nothing to watch, and then bam, you found what? Ghost Hunters or something, right?
Yeah, Ghost Adventures was the first thing we could agree
Ghost
on.
Adventures.
750 cable channels. That was what we came to.
It's so cool, but yeah, it works.
They happen to be doing a lot of locations around that time, somewhere around season 7 through 9, or maybe, or I might have just been watching the reruns. I don't even remember. And there were places that were nearby enough to Southern California that we were able to go, and so she had set up an investigation as guests with a private group that was doing a public event, and turned out, as we had hoped, that maybe they were looking for new people. And it was at the Glen Tavern Inn in Santa Paula, California, and it was fascinating. And then we started going to the Queen. I went to the Queen Mary endless times. So it's my favorite location to visit. And then it just became, like it does for a lot of us. It became something that was inspired to do. Something I realized
The next thing.
I'm learning stuff. I'm experiencing stuff. Yeah, it just became an ongoing thing to this day.
Now, you are also very much into the tech. Now, I admittedly, right up front, like Ron and I say, I'll hesitate to say all the people that sit down and put up right out front and say, I don't know shit. We're just looking, we're having fun, we're hanging with people we like to hang with that in some cases either challenge us or are like-minded with us, or we're going to investigate, but everybody has integrity. Nobody wants to fool anybody. Nobody wants to, I don't even know if anybody really at this point, Ron, wants to get, everybody wants that picture. Everybody wants that Class A EVP. But even though we get those, it just doesn't seem to be enough, right?
Well, it probably won't ever be enough, because if your concept of success and proof with regards to the paranormal is everybody on the planet holding hands, singing Kumbaya, going ghosts are real,
Oh, yeah.
it's not happening. It's like trying to get everybody in the state to root for the same football team, or it's a very deep-seated core belief thing, just like religion, just like politics, and just like sports teams. Some people are willing to go at it with you over a sports team, even though they don't get paid by that team. So it's a very deep-seated belief thing for a lot of people. And so they're going to have their own beliefs. The thing I always tell people is I don't know that I'm right or wrong, but my thoughts and feelings and beliefs and anecdotes and theories, they're all predicated on empirical experience and experience of people that I trust and admire and respect. So when people go, you don't believe in ghosts, or you don't believe in this, and it's not a belief system for me. Belief and faith is what you do when you don't really have anything tangible to go with. I've got evidentiary files, and I've seen people that I trust, like the other people from Entity Voices, Tony and Sheree Rathman, Chris Allgood, Audrey Keeler, Lourdes Gonzalez. So we have evidence of stuff. That's where my thoughts and feelings come from about this stuff and what may or may not be to it. I don't definitively know. I may never probably know definitively. But that's a big difference to me. It's not a belief system for me at all. It's based on experience, and maybe my experience is limited. Sure, 10 years from now, it will be twice as experienced as I am now.
Or changed. Because isn't that the beauty of it as well? It's like we'll see things like, or we'll have something, as a child. I don't know if you ever had experiences as a child, or maybe you did. You had them, you didn't know at the time, and look back and go, hey, maybe I did.
Right.
Maybe that And it changes, doesn't it? It changes because we're open minded. It's like an even flow. It's like and that's, I think, the beauty of it. And I think that's why we gravitate to people like, that's what I meant by like minded, because you can see it. Say at the bash, we were just recently at the Gettysburg Bash. Now you were, I think, arriving when I was leaving or something, or we were two ships in the night there, but we caught each other on the way out. We didn't get a lot of time to spend. And a couple years before that, when we, I can't remember if you were at that one 3 years ago or not, but whatever. We know a lot of the same people, Pam and Steve Barry. We know the KSPS. You know, we know Dave and Jim from there. We know Twisted Paranormal, and just keep naming them off. Scotty Porter. We know, just keep naming them. We could just sit here all night. Dave Seiler, and just all
good people.
All good people. And see, the thing is each one isn't going in. It's like, I'm going to get the thing. No, we're excited about it. They're excited about it, and they want to use the new equipment. They want to see what you have because they want to learn. And of course, everybody's showing stuff if they were lucky enough to get something, or better yet, asking, what do you see? What do you hear? What do you I remember one of the fantastic situations, and so excited for new people to come in and learn and to teach. This is what I know so far. This is what I think I know. This is my theory so far. We're looking into this. What do you think about it? It's that kind of connection. And if you wrote a book, everybody's excited for somebody who wrote a book and put their experiences down, because it may sound like it's all the same, but I assure you it's not. It's everyone is as individual as the person who had the experience. Everybody's vantage point is as individual as the person that had the experience. And I think that's one of the reasons why our hunger for this is never quite fed, or if it's satisfied a little bit, we always have that yearning for that taste again, kind of like taco flavored Doritos or something. It's like we remember how good that tastes. And I think as they go on, it takes a little more to satisfy.
There's always going to be that certain insatiable side of this, because there's always part of you that's going to be a little bit wired to doubt what you get yourself, to second guess what you got yourself. Even people that you trust and know, you're like, I wasn't there for that, but all right, it's part of we have cognitive biases. They're at play whether we realize it or not. And the more self-aware and the more in touch with the fact that that's a reality, then the better controlled and the better even keeled you can be when you're assessing something, when you're using some level of discernment to judge what you get. And this is a kind of thing where if you're the type of person who thrives on the participation trophy, it is not the thing for you, because it's you have to enjoy the process. You have to enjoy playing the game, and then sometimes you get that trophy, you get that catch, that capture. And sometimes you go somewhere. We went to Eastern State Penitentiary, that is an amazing location, and people get great stuff there. It was kind of flat when we went, so I can't say that it is or isn't haunted. I can tell you what my experience was, and it did not yield much. But that does not speak to the location. And you can't. Even when you go for a job, right? You get interviewed 2 or 3 times. You don't just go in for a few minutes and go, all right, well, I didn't get anything.
And that's one thing about the we can sit here and bash TV shows all we want. Each TV show has its own thing. Each television program has got its own star or group or team. And I personally know some of them, so does Ron. And I'll tell you something, some of them are happy with the way they're portrayed. Some were like, it's not all it's, cracked up to be, because they're telling their story as someone who's been on the show. And meanwhile, they're playing this, and he says, I walked up, I was shaving, and I felt like I wasn't alone in the bathroom, and I had an odd feeling. And the show has a demon breathing down his neck behind him in the replay. He didn't say that. Right. Or he says, I got shoved down the hall, and in the replay, he's actually picked up and thrown against the wall down the hall or something like that. We have to use discernment in the fact of, I'm not saying that things like that don't happen. They for surely do. I've seen some wild stuff. I know Ron has seen some wild things as well. But they have to sell. They have to sell it.
Yeah,
They have to
sensationalism
sell it.
sells. Look at the Annabelle movie. The real doll is much more timid looking than the one that they made for the movie. But I assure you, far more dangerous if if you ascribe to that and believe in that. It is far more of a sinister thing than the one they created to look scary for the movies. The thing you got to remember is that,
The truth is stranger than fiction, Ron. Sometimes, I mean,
yeah.
is it not? Do you find that in this? Because when you're looking at cases like, say, such as the entity, or you're looking at cases such as the haunted versus I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just had this burst of thought here, and I know you know what I mean when I say Amityville, 1970, what, four? I think it was four. It had to be three or four, somewhere right in there, Long Island. At the same time, there is a house where these people are truly, truly going through. It was portrayed as the haunted. It was a made-for-TV movie, which I believe was the difference. The Warrens were involved in both. At least, however little or much, or before, during, or after, they were involved. But here's the Amityville. Now, I hate to break hearts here, but if you haven't heard that Amityville was mostly made up in a sit down in a conversation between the author and the Lutzes and these things, I'd say make up your own mind and look into that a little deeper. Look into like the court records and the things that were said and things that went on. But that doesn't mean it's not real. That doesn't mean that these things don't happen, that families can go through these horrific experiences with true hauntings and true results and devastating lifelong changes, yes. At the
Yeah.
same time, here's this other family. And I tell everybody to either read the book or watch the movie. All of the families come out and said it was an excellent portrayal of what they went through. The father was raped in the living room. This church-going, hard-working father of six was overcome by succubus, demon, whatever you want to say. I don't know what label you want to put on it. Which one are we comfortable with? And horrifically changed for the rest of his life. I believe this man because he had no reason at age of 50, I can't remember factory work, I can't remember what he did, but to come out in 1970 neighborhood that he lived in with a Catholic going, you see what I mean? What did he gain?
Right.
Nothing. He lost everything. Unlike at the same time the Amityville, which blew the roof off of every merchandising, everything you can throw at it. So what I mean by bringing all that up is at least you've been in the city. You know how the city is, what it's like. You know what, the island is like. To have something like that going on simultaneously, I think tells the listeners a lot too. It's just because this one is fake or this one is embellished, this one is a show that's the producer set up somebody to knock on the wall, doesn't mean it's not happening, because we all know what's happening. There's too many stories.
Right. Right. Yeah, you can't judge the entire field of study based on one case. You can't go into a location or a place or somebody's investigation and debunk the evidence, go, see, this was that, you were wrong. And then go, all right, well, now ghosts aren't real. You can't do that. Every single instance has to be evaluated like its own. If you're running the race,
Absolutely.
every time you clear a hurdle, you got to go back to the starting line and clear the next one. You don't just keep going. Everything's individualized. It's a little bit of a conundrum situation because we're under this impression, especially with all the information on the internet and everything else. We're under this impression that we're in an age of enlightenment, and we're in an age of entertainment. More so than anything, too. That's why everything is sensationalized. It's the likes and the clicks and everything else. TV has done some damage, or media in some aspects, but it also helped move the ball forward a little bit more too, because it made this stuff less taboo and more socially acceptable to do and to talk about. And so, everybody says you got to take the good with the bad. Well, then there it is. You can bash the TV shows and the people on them all they want, but I mean. Truth, there is Entity Voices Paranormal Investigations.
There you go. I had to say,
people. So
slide that in there for you. They're all loving you, Ron. And just not to jump in here, but I wanted you to know that, like I said, I have Black Ops mods, and they're sharing your links out like crazy and everything else.
I
We're
appreciate it.
definitely going to get Ron's information toward the end here too. He is also he can add to his little bag of tricks there, author, and he's written a book. And I'm so glad all these wonderful minds are putting their thoughts and their experiences down in books. Until I wrote mine, I didn't realize how important it was, and
Hmm.
then when you get the first copies in the box and you open it, you smell it. You
Yeah,
smell it. It's your book, man. It's so cool.
yeah. I
But
do the
the
same thing when I buy underwear. To be fair, though, I
Yeah. Oh,
pick
do
another
you? Oh,
spot.
okay. Well, I
No,
told you. Yeah, that's not something we all do here in Jersey. Just saying.
no, yeah.
But the thing is when you get that, the best thing about it is all that it's wonderful. But somebody read your words. Somebody got what you were putting into print. They got the feeling of how did you feel when you saw your first full-bodied apparition, or did you, or shadow person, or did you struggle all summer at when your family went to a lake, whatever, and the entity that was standing in the corner of your room the whole summer, or what was your experience? And with you, was it really you just started looking at the like Ghost Adventures, whatever it was on TV, you were interested, you had places close by, you said, hey, let's go investigate, let's jump in, let's go on a ghost tour, a ghost walk. Was that what got you in there, or were you actually through your life picking up a little bit of maybe some, not everybody was, like, were you seeing things, did you have experiences, were you just drawn to the shows, what was it?
I didn't have any of those profound life changing experiences that a lot of people got into the field because of. When I look back now, there were some things from my childhood that were kind of odd, inexplicable, and that if I had had the frame of mind of any familiarity with paranormal research or the paranormal effect, I might have considered that as what might be going on. But nothing telling, really. I was always just fascinated with supernatural kinds of stuff. If it was on a TV show, whether it was a
There we
Bigfoot
go.
thing or
Yep.
whatever, I was always interested in it. Um, and then when I got involved with doing it, it was fascinating to me to see some of the stuff that I saw when people captured EVPs out of thin air, when somebody got an immune response out of a box from no discernible source that anybody could pin down. It was just inexplicable, and I was like, I want to do this because this is rooted in so many age-old questions. What happens next? What's
Hmm.
going on now? What is the nature of the reality that we think that we're in? And yeah, you learn a certain amount of stuff when you're going through school, but you hear to this day, you'll hear people say, science doesn't accept, or science is that. First of all, you can't talk
Okay.
about science like it's one guy. Like, I get that if you're a kid and you're in school, you think sex ed is one guy who's really lucky. I
Yeah.
got you. But
Yeah.
science is not one guy.
Right. No.
Science is, there's physicists and biologists and astrophysicists and engineers,
Hmm.
and there's people on all sides of the equation who are for and against the possible reality of all this stuff.
Hmm.
Um, so you can't say science as a general term does or does not accept it. When they're what they're referring to when they say that is something that's called scientism, which is when you take it like it's a belief system, and if anything of this supernatural, paranormal, ghosty stuff you have doesn't fit into the equation, you kick it
That's it.
aside because it's not
Right.
legitimate. That's not
Right.
science. That's scientism.
Right.
Science looks for the truth. It wants absolution, and it will keep
Hmm.
retesting and bouncing it off colleagues until you get to some answer. And if you don't, then it remains anomalous and it remains unknown.
Hmm.
But societally, we have elevated science to this infallible oracle level
Hmm.
kind of a thing where just out of a compulsion we feel the need to have this predictable, measurable future
Hmm.
reality that we can rely on, that's somewhere out there.
Hmm.
But it's not. That's not the way it works. There's so many unanswered questions. There's so much of this equation just that's happening on the other side of wherever we're contacting, that we
Hmm.
can't explain, that we can't answer, that we
And you
don't
can't
know the
repeat it over and
specifics of.
over again. You can't repeat it over, and that's what they want you to do. They want you to be able to take, one part. this, 2 parts of that, and put it in the
Right.
bowl and stir it the way you did before and have it turn out the same. And
Right.
that's just not going to work. And that's what Ron and I were saying earlier, about, and the whole reason I brought up the Amityville. Listen to me. You can write me all the letters you want. You can, put up. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm saying from my perspective. Now, as a native woman, I can tell you, just I've always been raised that we listen to what our elders say, because they've gone through more than you, and if they survived it, they were doing something right. Kept their eyes open, ears open, mouth shut probably, and listened and learned the hard way if they've got scars. And Ron and I both got scars. So I'm just saying that we didn't learn anything the easy way. We're not going at it rich, throwing a lot of money at it and doing all this other stuff. We're learning by getting out there and doing things. And we're approaching it from different angles. Rob is an investigator to where it's like, gosh, what's causing that? If I tell you to turn off both flashlights and I get something, not only did you do that, a response, an intelligence response, but you might have another reactive thing happen on another piece of equipment that backs that up. Like,
Right.
okay, here's an example. The chat knows what I'm talking about, and Ron was there, so he can give you a little bit. Oh, there's your Yak Man Facebook. I was wondering, it's like, is somebody else saying hi, Yak Man, but it's your link to your Facebook, Jackie, one of my great mods.
Thank you for.
So, yep. Ron is very accessible, and he has great stuff. And I'll tell you, I almost pulled a couple of videos just to play the videos, because he does such great videos and introductions when he goes into a place and tells you the history. And we will get into that, I promise. But as far as the reason I brought up the whole Amityville, the haunted, the Searle family it was that was going through this. And again, this was like, I think 5 or 6 kids. They lived in a duplex. His parents, the father's parents, lived next door. So the really odd thing about it, Ron, was like when the mom was like ironing or whatever, this was again, early 70s, typical Jersey family, Staten Island family. And she's ironing and she sees the black blob before she feels it first. The air changes, hair goes up the back of her neck, whatever it may be she's going through. Enough to where she looks in the direction of the new phenomena that's coming up. Here comes a black mist forming out of the corner, getting larger, forming, growing, some form, takes off across the living room, goes through the wall. It's a duplex. So it goes through the wall. The mother-in-law sitting in the chair watching TV on the other side of the wall sees it and screams, because it's going through her house and out the door. And I guess presumably throughout the neighborhood. It's not uncommon for more than one house in a neighborhood to have a haunting, and it will go back and forth. And like Ron said earlier too, it means nothing to go into a house and say, a team says there's nothing here. You cannot say a house is or isn't haunted with one visit. You can't do it.
Right.
Sometimes
You also can't do that on the strength of just vocals too. One of the things that I've come to learn from having a specificity with direct radio voice and ITC, which is instrumental transcommunication, which is a form of radiophony. We're using radios to communicate.
Okay.
Is that I can get vocals that are anomalous and inexplicable anywhere. So I can't, by the strength of an anomalous voice, say that a location is haunted, because I can get them anywhere.
Right.
So you need all the other toys that you spend your money on that measure different things. Yeah, you have to corroborate it with more than one thing.
It's a combination, and that's it. That's so it. It's like, too, I loved being at the bash, because if you get a chance to actually sit down, and all the going back and forth and trying to get that one and hug this one, I mean, it's 3 days of a lot of hugs and ghosts. It's just a fantastic weekend. But when we can settle down and really get the quiet times and start learning, get a chance to investigate together, or just sit down and tell stories over a cold beer or a good hamburger, it's really a learning weekend, because my thing is I'm trying to get that feeling, that heart back into it. And I'm talking to people that have already tried to do that in their own groups. And Ron and I both, I started much earlier than you, because I was sitting cross-legged on the floor, hoping to God that I would get to see a Twilight Zone that might have a ghost or a UFO or some kind of strange anomaly like that I was interested in, and I had to go to libraries and dig out information. And I had,
Yep.
I was 12. I remember riding on my bike holding a paperback book in my teeth so I could get up the hill, and it was Hans Hosler.
Ah.
And it's funny because I've got the hard copy now. It's Ghosts I've Met.
Hmm.
And, it was one of those because he got it. And I think at the time he was extremely interested in the tech that was available. He was digging in that way. I think he went at it scientifically on a psychology level. I think his culture had a lot to do with how he approached the situation. But he also was open enough to listen to trans mediums. He was also open enough to listen to the psychic or the sensitive or the empath that came through. And also to the point of, if I help the dead that are truly haunting this spot, then I help the living as well. So he was almost more focused in that aspect than he was with helping, the couple that owned the house, And I really dug that a lot because I was into helping the ghost that was in trouble, or, if it was at all possible to find that out, to trust that. Not just make the communication, but trust the communication, because I know human beings that are alive that lie to me like a rock. You get where I'm going with this.
No.
So now I was, like I said, watching shows like early and hoping that maybe Disney would come out with one on Sunday night before we went to school on Monday or whatever. But there was also a show. Now, Ron and I did an episode a couple of years ago on my other show, and we brought up, I found out that we both liked somebody an awful lot, and I don't know what it was about this man. I can't put my finger on it, but we both truly enjoyed sightings, and we both truly enjoyed a certain individual that I thought, if there was ever a medium walking and had integrity, and I mean there's many of them, I know many of them, but on TV everybody says, oh, this one, or she got it wrong, she was right for 30 years but got one wrong, so now it's worth it, out the window it goes, or
Yeah. Well.
that we so discount other people's talents. I can't. You got to put yourself in these people's shoes. Can you imagine what it would be like to hear the dead all the time, Ron?
No, I cannot. I'm still trying to imagine how it is to hear the living all the time.
Right.
And it happens.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it happens.
Yeah.
I will. Let me, if I can speak to that for a second.
Sure.
For one thing, just as much as you can't attest maybe to something you didn't bear witness to, you also can't condemn. And nothing of any kind of mechanical or instrumental or even protocol works 100% of the time. So if somebody's got pretty good odds or their accuracy is pretty solid, and then they miss sometimes, there's nothing wrong with that. They don't.
Right. Right.
No, thank you, Sheree. They don't lose credibility because they were wrong once in a while. The other thing I wanted to speak to was two parts with the proving it thing, with regards to the whole making it acceptable for the people in science who don't buy into it. Those who don't may never. If they're vested in a position, if this is not something that fits into the paradigm that they're comfortable in, then they may never. But scientific, right? So scientific method is really predicated on the method, like what you're doing. Like this, what we do is not a pseudoscience. I hate the word. It's a field of study, and then the measures used are either scientific or not. The person is either scientific or not. But it's like when somebody digs up dinosaur bones, right? They're an archaeologist. The subject matter is the bone. The study is archaeology. So the subject matter for us is the perceived paranormal effect. And then the study of it, the field, is actually paranormal research or afterlife research, or that's the study. So it's not a pseudoscience. It's not a science at all. One of the things that's fascinating, that is really kind of a conundrum with the whole science side of it, is that out of necessity, in most cases, science has to remove the data from the context within which that it was initially happened or took place, right? to study it. And then at the end of the day, the context and the placing where it happened, I'll give it, like, if it's a location, let's say, right? Those things are what give it, the context of what gives it its value, gives it its meaning. It comes from the context. So when you remove that, you lose some of that. Also, in Italy, in Grosseto, Italy, there was a gentleman who did direct radio voice, who was an early ITC gentleman, and his evidence in his work speaks to two things. It speaks, one, to that, because he was shielded from all radio signal, all RF signal. He used vacuum tube radios. They took all 3 glass tubes out of his vacuum tube radio. He still got anomalous voices that he shouldn't have gotten. So all these hurdles that people say we need to jump through to be able to prove what we do, he did it. Marcello Bacci did it. They investigated him for 3 years. A team with scientists and physicists. They made him work with his radios open. So those hurdles have already been cleared by people before. For one, the other aspect of that is that he was using vacuum tube radios. So while I do believe that tech and the push for developing tech and using different things like lasers or different frequencies and stuff is true, and it can provide a breakthrough, it should not be the only focal point. Because this guy in the 70s, 80s, with a tech that is outdated and antiquated clearly to what we have now, produced results that we have not paralleled with advanced technology in comparison. We have not mirrored the quality of what he did. So you have to look at this that way. For one, that the tech moving forward is an aspect of it, but it shouldn't be the only focal point. There's something else to it if this guy was getting what he was getting. And whatever's out there is out there. Is the other thing to keep in mind too. Like, we have this thing where, in the study of consciousness, it's said that if the question can be born, that the answer must already exist. That, in causality, that must already be out there. So when we're making progress and we're going down this path towards enlightenment and trying to figure out this paranormal thing, right? It's not like the things that start hitting our radar are manifesting and happening now. It's kind of like if you're in a car or a train and you're driving down the road, as the landscape presents itself, it's not manifesting for you.
Right.
It's been there,
it's
being revealed through progress. And I think some of the stuff that we're getting to is already there. So we have to keep in mind that it's not all going to happen immediately, and that there's aspects of this that, if it's controlled on the other side, that we don't have the control over at all. And that threes thing, you kind of hinted towards a little bit before about replicating something. First of all, paranormal research is one of the only fields that they hold that to, right? Astronomy, sociology, like, they don't make astronomers bring planets into labs to test and prove them, right? So it's an accepted field study. So if we are vetting the authenticity of our location, then it should be an okay field study the way we're doing it, for one. And the other thing is, if you take that mentality, it's not really a fair or an accurate, the Akashic records. So, right, that's like the collective consciousness comes from that same principle, exactly. If you
told you they were smart.
Absolutely. You take that threes thing, right? And remember, it was Einstein that said if you judge a fish by its ability to climb, it will think it's stupid for its whole life. So that threes thing is not really an accurate assessment of paranormal research. And I'll tell you why. Let's say I take my electronic device that allows me to contact somebody who is not in my physical space, using electromagnetic waves, energy, electricity, etc. Right? Like, this thing does it. And I call my dad 10 times. One of those 10 times he picks up the phone. By that standard of threes and repetition in the same setting, he doesn't exist, because I have a 90% fail rate and I couldn't do it 3 times in a row. So what's the missing piece to that? The missing piece is that if you're trying to dialogue and communicate with an intelligence, right? You don't talk to your couch because you're not expecting responses from that. So if you're talking with expectation of response, there's an implied intelligence involved, right? You're trying to get an intellectual spirit or entity, whatever. So inherent in intelligence is choice and free will. So if I go onto a bus and start talking to strangers, some of them aren't going to want to talk to me because they have that choice, right? So if you have inherent in the process choice and free will, then who's to say that when you reach out to try to connect to the beyond, that you're not getting a response because they don't want to.
They don't want to talk to you. Or they're sitting there.
You want to talk to somebody and you still can't because of the signal doesn't hold up.
100%. And I say that all the time. Just because you go into a place and you're not getting a response, they could be sitting right there. Peter Underwood, 1943 maybe, came out with, they left cameras in an old house, did whatever they do. He was part of the, you know the name, right? He was the head of the Ghostbuster Society for Britain. I forget what the name of it was right now.
Society of Psychical Research?
Yes.
The SPR.
And, yep. So he's the head of that. So they're doing what their high tech was at the time. So they're setting up what they had. They got left cameras or whatever it was. They got a recording. What's that? They're taking pictures. Don't talk to them. This is what he got. And he tells the story on his YouTube now. Of course, his I guess grandson is running his YouTube channel and puts out his stories. And he used to be on a radio show, and he tells wonderful stories, a wonderful, very Sir Arthur Conan Doyle kind of way about him. The way he tells his stories is wonderful. But the thing is they're cracking this back then. He was the one who went in Borley Mansion and got the college students to sit in there for a couple of weeks trying to get information. And I mean, there was so much stuff going on at the Borley, and it right. changed from one family to the next. Whoever would move into the rectory, it would change. Different things would happen. And Ron and I both understand, talking, not only our own experiences and experiences we've had with others and the great groups we've hung with and the people that we've gotten to talk to, will tell you your energy can change what's going on in that house. So one family might set it off like rolling rockets, and the next one it might go dormant almost, or it didn't go dormant, it left and went somewhere else, because you cannot continuously anybody that says every bit of this can be neatly fit into all these little files and put in your file cabinet is lying to you, because they don't know what they're talking about. You can't put a label, because I wish I had $1 every time somebody says, "Oh, ghosts can't do that."
Right. Yeah. How do they know though? That's the thing. Is how do people tell me that the ghost boxes and radios they don't work?
Right.
How many times have you used one? Have you have no?
How do you know?
It's not a belief for me. Well, here's the thing too is that people are very comfortable speaking authoritatively to something that they have no experience in doing whatsoever. For one. And it's because it's a belief for them, and if it doesn't fit into their paradigm, then they can't move on from it. But the thing is these specific things, like you talk about a location. One of the other members of the SPR, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake, who also sat in on the skull experiment, calls that collective energy or collective consciousness of everybody in the environment or even beyond morphogenic fields. So you are part of the equation when you do this. And the interesting thing, if you go back to the Marcello Bacci example I gave before, when they tested him, they took 1, 2, 3 vacuum tubes out of his radios. Now, pre-transistor, that's how they worked. Right? He still got anomalous voices coming through a shortwave frequency with no radio emissions. So the only thing that they found that they could remove from the process that stopped the voices was Marcello Bacci himself.
Wow.
That was it.
Wow.
This is the guy who jumped through hoops. He jumped through hoops like crazy. The other thing is, if people don't understand too, is that it also takes time when you go over these things. We don't always hear things in the moment. You have to learn how to assess your evidence too. A lot of times, when you listen to a ghost box or a direct radio voice session or an EVP, a lot of times it's a learning process that has to do with our inborn audio or pattern recognition, really, cerebrally. Because it's if you were flying over a landscape you never saw before, right? The first time you're clearing this territory, nothing looks familiar, nothing really jumps out at you. It's kind of like, all right. The second time you start picking up points of reference and you start identifying things, and then each time you get around, you start picking up more, and then you're able to recognize patterns or recognize things that are there. And it's the same thing when you're trying to assess vocals that are embedded in a recording, whether it's at an EVP level or if it's a ghost box or a spirit box, anything like that too. It's the same thing. So there is a part of the process that experience speaks to, and it's not just something to judge based on an uneducated opinion.
Correct. I agree. I agree. And I also agree with, um, if you go back, and I know we discussed this before, so we won't, we'll go too deep into it, but, just mentioning the shows again. And the reason I do is because a lot of the paranormal or the supernatural, let's just go there too and throw that in, whether you want to talk about angels or miracles or things that we look for that give us hope. I mean,
Yeah.
everybody needs mile markers. And going on a cross country journey and you're going down the highway, we love to see those signs that tell us, yeah, we're right where we're supposed to be. We like seeing those mile markers. We like getting those atta girls, those atta boys, and, that little thing. You might find $10 in the
Yeah.
street. You might see a cardinal. It might be a butterfly at the right time. The phone call, the radio that plays the song.
Yeah.
Those are all just as valid, I feel, Ron. And that's why I bring in also mediums and
Of course.
feelings and psychics. And, a lot of people say, well, I don't believe psychic. The problem is, and there's no problem with being skeptical. There is no problem with being open-mindedly skeptical.
Right.
But you probably just haven't sat in front of the right medium or psychic because
Right.
I'll tell you what, I've seen them. And I know you also got inspiration from that because you could reach out and see people like Holzer. And even though he wasn't a psychic, he hung with some very good, with Sybil Leek being one
Right.
of them, Ethel Myers another. But
If there's
also, go ahead.
there's a couple things in the chat. There's one thing in the chat that I wanted to address, but just to touch on that real fast too, with the psychic things too, is that you can't condemn something you've never tried. Thank you, Jackie. You can't condemn something you haven't tried, so you can say, okay, no mediums are legit. Well, you think you would need to have sat with every one of them
Yep, you would
to
have.
say that, every one of them. Because
Yeah.
you know what? Here's the thing.
I beg to
I'm
differ.
gonna-
I beg
yeah.
to differ. I'm just
Yeah.
saying, you're welcome to your opinion, and I don't mean that in the wrong way. I want to make this perfectly clear. You are absolutely welcome to that. But as I say, you
Right.
just haven't been with the right one and haven't done the right things.
Right.
Although I have myself questioned, okay, are they reading what I want to hear? Okay, I've tested that. No, because I've had mediums tell me things that I forgot that set me back. And I mean, to the point of, you're talking to somebody who's dealt with, let me pick one that would give you PTSD. I do work with a lot of vets that have PTSD. I've sat around a lot of campfires and a lot of fire pits with vets, and we're dealing with PTSD and trigger sounds, trigger words, things that bring you back.
Right.
It's no
Right.
different than, getting a flashback and remembering being there. I will tell you the example, as personal as it may be. My mother died in a hospital. I was alone at 10 and a half, 11. She went to the hospital, didn't come back. And we were on a cross-country trip. We were in a different state. We didn't have any family. You wonder what happens to a kid when something like that happens and you're staying in a hotel and, just with a U-Haul out front. Your mom
Right.
goes to the hospital, doesn't come back. So, this puts you through things. So when she passed, eventually, and it was weeks and weeks, a lot longer than it should have taken, family finally found me, got me. And I could not believe at this point, as an 11-year-old child, that my mother left, having the time to write a letter or a note of explanation, some kind of that thing. And I'm digging
Right.
through her clothes. I'm digging through what the hospital sent me. I'm digging through purses that she never got to use because she spent a Christmas in there. I mean, I'm telling you, this is deep. This is
Right.
someone who is a young tween, 11 years old girl. God knows the hormones and the feelings and the drama, the trauma,
Yep.
the shock of it all. And I blanked it out, Ron, because there was no note, no letter.
Yeah.
No note, no letter. A medium I'm sitting in front of and asked to speak to someone else, because at the time I was trying to get in touch with my sister for something else. And I know this sounds like the wackiest thing in the world, but I promise you it's true. The medium says, wait a minute, your mother's here and she wants to say she's sorry for this. And this has been several times she had come to me, so we had ironed a lot of this out, but she said, I want to say I am so sorry. I stood behind you while you went through the boxes and opened the purse and there was no letter. I'm sorry I didn't write a letter. I'm sorry I didn't leave an explanation. And this is what the medium is saying. And I'm remembering it, Ron, and it's hitting me. Holy shit, that happened. And it's all flooding me back, the feelings, the hit, the gut punch, the whole thing.
Yep.
That's not fake.
Right. Well, here's the thing, and that's your experience, and that's the point of this, is that you can't discount somebody else's experience.
Right.
You can't discount a method of communication or anything supernatural or paranormal unless you've done it yourself, and then you can only speak to your experience of it. I wanted to address one thing on the skeptic side of what you mentioned, and then one of the people in the chat, Grey Wolf Paranormal, said that they removed the antenna from their SB7 so they don't get radio interference. I would advise the opposite, and I'll tell you why. One thing is that the responsibility of what you consider paranormal effect coming out of a spirit box is on the user, on the operator, having a level of discernment of if something, it sounds like it's an anomalous voice. Timing and relevance are how we always govern what we assess when we get something. So if I say, what's on my hand, and it says mouse, and that's what I'm holding, the timing and relevance is very hard to discount. If it just says mouse, doesn't mean it's not paranormal, but the timing and relevance steps up the authenticity of that. The other thing is that what I do, which is Captain Here, which is direct radio voice research, DRV predates sweeping ghost boxes, and it's basically a barren, empty white noise frequency, long wave, medium wave, short wave, whatever, with just the white noise. There's no sweeping, there's no human vocals involved. It's an older European method, and interference is integral to the process for one thing, but when you're using a ghost box and it's sweeping an AM or an FM band, the methodology supposedly that aids this thing in working is that there are fragments that are random, which takes out false positives to a much lower degree because of the sweeping. If you're not getting radio reception on the device, you're not availing the spirit to the fragments or the allophones or phonemes of sound, the speech fragments, for them to use and manipulate. So it's almost counterproductive to kill the antenna on a spirit box. And some people they'll put it in a Faraday cage, and then they'll run a wire out to an external speaker. Well, guess what? That wire is now your antenna. That's your connection now. The other thing I wanted to touch on as far as the skeptic thing is skepticism. Very important. Educating yourself and not everything is or isn't a normal effect. Very important. There is a role identification issue in the field where if you don't think anything's paranormal and you're trying to debunk everything, that you're the skeptic. That's not a skeptic. A skeptic looks for truth and absolution. They want to know what it is, and they're not buying everything, but they're going to look into it, but they want the truth. If you have an agenda that says nothing is paranormal, you are a believer, because that is a belief system. They don't call it that because of the term believer is something that's already been pinned on the person who thinks everything's a ghost. So the other side says, all right, well, we don't believe any of this stuff, so we're the skeptics. And the word skeptic just has, societally and sociologically, it has connotations of being more well-educated, more well-to-do, well-spoken, well-researched. Right. So it has a positive spin on it. But in actuality, if you think everything is or nothing is, those are belief systems, and they're opposing paradigms, but they're belief systems. So if you don't think anything's paranormal, you're a believer. So that's it's a misnomer.
It's just believing in something different and in a different way. And that's and I think also that's why we enjoyed the show so much going back, because when you're talking about and this is really all the same subject, we're going back and forth from really high-tech stuff that people are pulling apart, from whether it's a Frank's box or whether it's a flashlight going on and off, or
a Holte paranormal box. Steve Holte is watching right now. I have a bunch of his boxes. Him and Katie Holte are brilliant ghost box builders.
Wonderful.
They're incredibly talented ITC people. I have a bunch of his boxes for a reason. Yeah, they're fantastic.
Welcome in. And thanks for everybody coming in. If you wouldn't mind hitting the like, we're a tiny little show with a fantastic, wonderful chat with wonderful mods and people who share our stuff and really, really continuously kind to our guests. We always come in here and have a good time, and we're talking back and forth with skeptics and believers and this, and that's fine. And we're talking about mediums. Don't believe mediums, or every medium on TV is this or that. Listen, I know some of them, and no, they're not. I mean, that's the point. It's like when you get to sit down and meet these people, not what their producers or editors or how they chopped up the show is, and really get to meet these people. A lot of them had this aching in their heart. Listen, I was given a gift. I was, seeing people that came to me with wants and needs, and I saw human beings very much like the Hans Holzer way, or so many other people that I've heard from. Like studying the dead has helped me learn so much more about the living, how to be a better person myself, how to raise my consciousness, my vibration, how to share that with other people. And again, that's what we do on the show too. It's not to prove ghosts exist or don't exist. It's more like have a heart with somebody who is presenting a piece of evidence and saying, look what I got. And then let's talk about it. Where were you? Obviously debunking, well, it's not a shadow. Or it's not this, or it's not a flash from a camera, or it's not somebody trying to trick us with string, like the old Vincent Price movies with the the skeleton on the the fishing line and stuff like that. It's not everybody is trying to get one over on you, and you know what? Neither are the ghosts in a lot of cases. A lot of times the stuff they do is all they can do. They don't, in some cases, they don't know what's happening to them. Not everybody I bump on the street wants to talk to me, and you know what? I don't want to talk to them either. So ghosts feel that way as well. These are people in need of help, just like Hans Holzer said. I've never been afraid of a ghost, so I've always felt like there were human beings in need of help. And I think Ron looks at that too. He looks at the tech, and he looks at the evidence, and not just what he's getting, but what others are getting. And hey, how'd you get that? And let's talk about this, and how can we tweak this and get something better? And all the different groups that are listening tonight, every single group is just as important as another, because you never know who's going to get that piece. And I love when we can go to the same places and compare evidence. Like that big thing that came out before, not too long ago, para-unity, or whatever you wanted to call it, where some people were trying to get together and have these things like the bash, and have things like bringing more than one group to one property to try to see what evidence they got and come together to try to put the puzzle together. Because Ron and I have also discussed in the past too about going to a house and assuming just because that person died there, that's the ghost. Do you know what I'm talking about? You don't do that.
It's an odd conundrum that we ascribe to this notion that the spirit world is devoid of space-time restriction like we have here, but then we go, but they're trapped in the second floor of a 4-story. No, maybe they're not trapped. I mean, there could be something that they're adhered to, or maybe some reason they stay, or maybe another entity traps them. Who knows? But the
also,
thing is that there's no way to know 100% of who you're talking to. Very well, you could go somewhere and what you're communicating with could be transient.
Yeah, or they came in with the group. They came in with the homeowner. They came in with the car accident 2 miles down the road and saw the light going on, because so many people possibly with abilities and enlightened minds and higher frequencies are putting off some kind of a different vibration. And, hey, party going on over here. And they came in. You can't definitively say that this space right now is haunted by this dead person that died from cholera back in 19 whatever, and we're going to just call her Maggie because you got to help me on an EVP. You can't do that either. Even you could have a Class A EVP, and it does not prove that Ruby's haunting the attic.
Right. Even if something says that people jump at too. If you get a recording and the voice says demon, doesn't mean it's a demon. I could come on your show next week and shout astronaut. Doesn't mean I'm going to space anytime soon. right?
Although
It's
we
just
know.
what I said. That's all it is. It's what I said.
Rich redhead. Damn, it
Yeah.
didn't work. Well,
So
listen.
you have to be
Before,
an adult, and you have to have some kind of
yes.
level of discernment,
Mm-hmm.
and you have to understand that we don't know everything, and even what we can control,
That much, maybe.
there's 50% at least of the other side
Mm-hmm.
of the process, if there's another side of the veil or whatever you want to refer to it as, that we don't know and that we can't control. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you hear a vocal that's faint and you go, oh, it needs more energy, we need to give it more energy. They may not use energy from what
Mm-hmm.
we have. They may have completely different energy where they are.
And we could be
They might
hearing,
not be trying to be heard. Maybe they're talking amongst each other, and then it's
right,
not meant for us.
like
So
in the Peter Underwood thing. Don't talk to them. You could just see them standing there. I don't know, these people, they're coming to take pictures, they're recording us, or don't talk to them. And I've heard this in other things, where they're picking up, it's like, oh, don't do it, don't bang on the tape, don't,
yeah,
you're
and it's
hearing
hard to
those little things.
it's
Yeah.
hard to believe this stuff too. There was a survey that was done somewhere around, I think, the late '70s into the '80s or somewhere, I forget, where they polled people on their beliefs in the paranormal, and about 70% of the country said that they believed in the afterlife, and 70% of that 70% did not believe it was possible to communicate with it.
Yeah.
So that's interesting, and that speaks to the second level of barriers, not just belief in the paranormal, but the belief in the actual being able to connect with it,
Mm-hmm.
that we have to deal with on a daily basis when we do this stuff, because people don't think it's possible to even do that,
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
spite of the fact that the people like the Holtes
Mm-hmm.
and Austin Maynards and Tim Woolworth and the people who have yielded incredible results with communication sessions, that are not explicable by normal means.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And all these other things that happen that are, what happened with me. And again, this is not one time with this medium. This medium knows nothing about my family or myself. And again, has shown me more things that I forgot. And then you'll have somebody like parapsychologist or something along those lines, who might argue with, they put the thought in your head and you just imagine that you had that. Very much like reincarnation or regression therapy or any of those things. Well, they just planted the seed of thought in your head and you imagine that you had this. There's always a way to talk somebody out of evidence or something that made them feel good. The cardinal on your side view mirror of your car because you were thinking about your dad. And if you want to think that your first initial intuition, if that's what you want to say, is that made you feel better because you felt like your dad sent that cardinal to say hello or say, yes, I'm okay, because you were just thinking about it or humming the song or whatever. Those synchronicities in our life. Why talk yourself out of it? Why let someone else talk you out of it? Why let somebody else talk you out of the picture that you got behind little Jimmy's head next to the Christmas tree on Christmas morning when you were talking about grandma? Is that an orb of grandma? Is that a love light? Is that a spirit guide? Is that an angel? I can't tell you that. What does your heart tell you it is? And what does it matter if that person believes that and has that picture and shows people and says, look, miracles exist? Why do we constantly have to talk each other out of it? If we are in the setting of who's got the best evidence, can you debunk? You can't. I'm just saying you can't really do that on a level of, I don't believe that, or that's not the way I do it, or I don't believe in the equipment, I don't understand the equipment, I don't, you see
Right,
what I
and
mean?
those two things often go together. I don't believe in, and I don't understand. You know, by the same stretch of logic, I could say that I don't believe in Wyoming because I've never seen it. And even though people have pictures of it and they say this is it, I don't know that it exists.
I've
I've
not
never
been there.
encountered Wyoming.
I've not been there. I don't
Yeah,
believe it
you can't.
exists. But that's it. I like the world, and I by no means am a person that you can just over on me. I've been a bartender, for Christ's sake. You know what I'm saying? You can't just pull the wool over my eyes like that. I had a really good liar as a daddy, so I'm I'm well versed in bullshit, but the what ifs are so cool, man, And when we watched those shows when we were younger, we were also intrigued not by the what if, But imagine, and could I do something like that? Or I'd like to sit in, who says that but paranormal
Yeah.
people? I want to sit in a dark cellar. I want to do that. This is the epitome of paranormal. My son and I, who went to the bash, my husband and my son and I, well, my husband went into the room very early, and like 10ish or so. We're crawling up there about 12:30, somewhere around like that, Friday night. Now this is after driving and getting there and everything else, right? So people are bumping into each other, and you hear little things when you're around people like this all the time. It's like, you got to go down in that hallway, there's something going on down there. You hear it all the time at the bash. Got to go up in that elevator, because that one, there was some weird thing going on there. We were all getting goosed at the bash too. Did you get goosed at the bash at the Wyndham?
No, and I paid for it, and I did not.
You? I didn't come. Oh shoot! I'm sorry. You're supposed to come with your room service in the morning, the first day. It was lovely. You got to make sure you let them know you didn't get yours.
Yeah.
But anyway, we're coming off the elevator, and it was just that weird feeling when the elevator goes up. It's like a second of almost zero gravity there.
Right.
In a regular elevator ride, that lift and down. That
Yep.
let go. We got that after we stepped off the elevator, and I thought it was some kind of vertigo thing or something. I don't know. I've never really had it, so I don't know what it feels like. So I'm just like, woo, what was that? And I turned around and I looked at people behind me. I didn't feel a grab or anything. So didn't say anything. It happens again before we got on the elevator, but by the elevator. Because you're on the 6th floor. Most of the people are on the 6th floor at the Wyndham when you stay. So you're up and down, a lot of up and downs, right? So it kept happening. It happened to my son. We're down in the lobby talking about it. It happens to both of us at the same time. So I mentioned it to Dave Haney, KS Paranormal, and somebody had brought him some rum, so I moved on. Went to the next, because you do a bit of heavy drinking after about 12 o'clock, So anyway, those things were going on. It happened to Ernie Atwell. It happened to Dave Seiler over by the ATM. People were getting goosed at the Wyndham in Gettysburg. And I felt like now keep in mind, this is a feeling. I can't prove it in science.
Right.
But I felt like it was, I know how to do this. I'm going to have some fun. Y'all want to see some ghosts? Y'all want to woohoo, woohoo, woohoo kind of thing.
It's a new field of study now. It's astrology.
Yes. And it was a trip to go around and bump into other people that said that happened to me, and I thought I was the only one. So it was pretty cool. But we also had, again, about 3-4 people that came to me and said, well, if you get a chance, go down that hallway. So here's where we were, Ron. I present to you. You know where you were sitting and having your radio conversation over by where they were giving tattoos at the end of that hall?
Yeah.
Okay, at the Wyndham. And as you walk down the hall toward the back of the Wyndham, you pass where the porch was, and the DJ and the barbecue and the cigars and all that was outside. And then you turn and you go up that other hall.
Yep.
So I go walking down the hall. It's about 12:30 because my son and I, and this is what happens to paranormal people, and you're all going to laugh, but we go up in the room, drag our asses up to the 6th floor. It's 12:36. And I'm getting ready to change, and I put my hands, and I move my dowsing rods, and I look at him, and I go, let's go check out that hallway. 12:30 at night, driving for hours.
That's early.
But I'm just saying, we're going back down the stairs to sit at the end of the hallway in the dark with dowsing rods and try to get EVPs. This is what you do. But we did.
You take every opportunity. It's you paid to be there. It's not costing anything extra to do it.
Right. So we did it. Now, the first thing I observed, and I could be wrong, it's just my guess, there were some huge MAGA mirrors down this hallway. It was a service hallway. It was the back end of where the convention hall where all the vending was. All that was closed up. DJ, last cord had been rolled up and tucked away. There was one little group saying goodnight over by where you were giving the radio show. We're way down at the end of the other hall. You can't hear anything, maybe a door slam. And we're sitting there, and I get a feeling. I'm asking questions with the dowsing rods, just trying to see what's up. But the first thing I observed was these big mammoth mirrors about the size of half a wall. And then you go caddy quarters, another mirror. then down again like a zigzag as another mirror, like they were servicing and they were just leaning up against the wall. And I'm thinking, you're getting energy bouncing off of these mirrors, and that's why everybody's feeling this erratic, because who's going up and down? All the servers.
Yeah.
They're taking care of this big party, they're doing this big thing. So anyway, we're down at the end of the thing. I get a feeling behind me, my shoulder gets cold, I've got this like tingling feeling behind me, and I'm asking, do you feel? I'm getting answers with the dowsing rods, absolute check, uncheck, check, uncheck. I'm just asking a couple questions. My son pulls out a phone and hits record. He got his first Class A EVP when I said, do you feel stuck? And I got two young girls, two separate voices. How you can get two separate voices and emotions with one syllable words, I don't know how to explain it to you, chat, but you can. If you've listened to hundreds of hours of videotape and EVPs and recordings, you can tell this is two different young girls. And one says no, and the other one from a little further away says no. They changed it, like they were looking at each other going, do you feel trapped? No, I don't feel trapped. Just those simple words. His first EVP, I said, don't ever take another EVP. You won. Put it away. You won, put it away, because you got... But the thing is at the same time, the evidence on its own wouldn't stand, because everybody in there would say there was people down the hallway, even though they were on the other side of the hotel. It's dirty.
Yeah.
But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah, I know what you're saying too. But you know what? Here's the thing: is if you give people a free pass to be absent-minded when they're trying to debunk or they're being doubtful, then shame on you. I mean, the truth is you can't throw, the best ventriloquist can't throw a whisper from down a hallway at a decibel level if you look at it on a waveform that the human vocal tract can't replicate.
Yeah.
You can't do that.
No.
And if you can, you need to find a line of work that pays for it, because that's incredibly talented. People who don't believe or don't buy in would not believe in Bigfoot if he handed them their car keys.
A sandwich,
It's just that's their position, and they're sticking to it.
It's so true.
And you can't target those people. I respect someone's decision to not think that there's something to this. The fascinating thing is that those people will try to use science. Science doesn't accept it. Well, some of science does. Maybe not the ones you know or read about, but some of it does. But the incredible thing is this, and think about this from the perspective of the paranormal investigator, right? Science with this stuff has anecdote, it has theory, it has means of trying to test an experiment and see what's what and try to replicate, etc. Anecdotes and theories can be fluid like definitions. However, if you look at evidence like what you described, EVPs, radio voices, visual anomalies, if you look at those pieces of evidence, for every gender, for every background of person, any city, any state, every paranormal group, you have the same facets, the same characteristics of the evidence across the boards amongst all those people, all that data. So when you have consistency of data, you have reliability of data. When you have reliability of data, you have stability and reliability at the same time. And that, in my opinion, is why I think the field of paranormal research independently is leading the charge towards finding out what the actual truth to all this stuff is over the field of science, because I think there's way more evidence to speak to the realism of paranormal effect than there ever was for like the id, the ego, and the superego. But those things are no problem because we're not programmed to doubt those kinds of things. But you know, what we do is different. We're doing is exceptional. Arthur C. Clarke would say that any sufficiently advanced technology is almost indistinguishable from magic. And what we do is really a form of technomancy, right? We're especially with regards to ghost boxes and direct radio voices, we're through the use of facilitating or the tech we're using is being affected and creating what is in observation almost seems like a magical, unrealistic, impossible effect, which is fascinating, and it's a conundrum for people because of the same scientific principles that go into the design of these devices are creating results that are in opposition to those scientific principles that went into the devices.
Yeah, and the thing is like I think what we're getting at too is not just the quest for the lore of it, the fun of it, the camaraderie, the friends, the people that we go with, and the mystery of it, the whole thing. It's just an amazing thing to be in. But then when you add in and you allow in, whether you allow it or not, like Ron said earlier, believe or not, it's not gonna, it doesn't change anything. The scenery's still there when the car's going down. It's not materializing in front of you. It's already there. We're just tapping in to try to understand it a little bit more for our own reasons. Like, for me with those two little girls, and I'll say it's two little girls, that's what I was feeling before I ever got a yes cross or a no answer on my dowsing rods, before he ever got the answer, no on his
Right.
EVP that we found after the fact. But it is even more solidified for me through feeling and heart that before I left, I said, look, I don't have the ability to unravel all this. I can only validate that you're here and that I understand what you're answering to the questions I'm asking, but I promise you by tomorrow I will send somebody down here that will help you if you do need any help, if you have any questions or have a message for someone. So I sent somebody down, two separate people. One came back and told me that they bumped into two young females and they feel just fine, they're having fun, they don't need any help. I never said that we got the EVP. I never said that I felt that it was young. So to me, again, without anything, not to say that I don't believe in equipment, I just don't understand it, and I don't have any. I have dowsing rods, and I have me, and I have my intuition,
Yeah.
and that I know really good people that have really good equipment.
Yeah.
That's my situation.
Those experiences with rods, or if you get a medium performance, and they get conversations or visions, or everything that somebody experiences that they genuinely experience, they do, and every bit of that is valuable to the field of study. One of the things that drew Lourdes and I to direct radio voice and to the ITC, instrumental transcommunication, and even EVP stuff, is because what you have there is one of the things that we're called upon by the science touting people. You have what's called a PPO. It's a permanent paranormal object. You can re-examine that audio file over and over and
Right.
over. You can look at it in the waveform. You can try to do things to filter it, to maybe clean it up. And so when you can keep re-examining something, which, as I mentioned earlier, science always does, and you can do it in a sense this way without having to take it out of context where it does lose its value, that's something that helps further the study, because it's not like you go to try to figure out some methodology for a medical thing and you're doing something on a cadaver and you go, oh, I think I produced a result, and then you turn around and it's gone. I know I did it. It was there.
It was there.
So when you can keep reproducing the study, you can keep re-examining the evidence. It gives it more of an evergreen and value effect for for an area of study where it's ongoing. It's ongoing.
And it's and it's so fun. The quest is so fun, and learning about all the different things. And again, like we said in the beginning of the show, everybody is running on their own fuel. Everybody is going for their own reasons. Some of us want to find out what happens, when we pass, and what's the afterlife. Is there an afterlife? Is there other dimensions? Are things coming through, back and forth through dimensions? Are there portals? Are there, what's going on? I mean, that's just it. And, for somebody to squash somebody for evidence or anything like that, or say this, and this, I understand in some cases why people do that. But I also love that wonderment of the whole thing, and that whole wow, when those people came back and said that they bumped it, it validates what you already knew. Just like I said, with the medium giving me that information, it took me a long time to get over going back and revisiting that crushed feeling, and then having to deal with, holy crap, this is real. And not only that, but my mom came through and it bothered her enough to bring it up from the other side. And then you've got people who would say, well, none of that happened. All people that come back from the dead are demons, and you shouldn't be talking to any of these people. What are you doing? And then you got people, no, they're aliens. No, wait. They're aliens that were good at one time, and then their race changed, and now they're demons.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and this is just my.
But you get everything I said is true.
Yes.
Everything I just said is true.
Yeah. This is in my very non-professional, pedestrian level existence here.
Yeah.
My 2 cents. I don't think we can speak to a certain level of certainty that a lot of people might be comfortable doing. Like I've gotten stuff before through direct radio that was very indicative of my mom. I could tell you that in my heart I believe it was her. I can't say beyond a shadow of somebody else having a doubt.
Right.
And I'm not talking about someone who has an agenda that paranormal stuff is all bull. I'm talking about somebody who even believes in it. But, I can't prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that it was her. One of the chats thing mentioned before with there's a certain gentleman, Steve Huff, who has recordings of Robin Williams coming through. And so one of the things, now I don't know this to be true, but just to give you an idea of really having to dig in and do the research, some of the audio banks or files that I was told that he may be using would have Robin Williams' voice, even if it's fragmented and chopped up. So when you get the tonality and the voice of somebody and you're using their voice, and even still, I have a friend right now. I did 3 videos for the Jersey Paraunity Expo when I had my exhibit running there, the ITC exhibit just recently, and he does voices for cartoons like Simpsons, DC Universe, and he did Marcello Bacci, Friedrich Jurgensen, and Konstantin Radovic. Sounds just like him. So just because a voice comes through, and even if it sounds like the person, you still can't with absolution know.
You can't.
That's who it is. You can't know. You can believe wholeheartedly. You can be almost positive. I don't ever like to say that I know beyond a doubt because I can't prove it to that degree. But here's the thing, though. When you're talking about the skeptic side of things, too, right? By the same token, there's this misconception in what we do because we're trying to prove something incredible that the onus is on the person making the claim. That if you're saying this is paranormal, you have a burden of proof. That's true. But when you're assessing something as either being paranormal, not paranormal, or I don't know, those are the only 3 positions you have. It is, it isn't, and I don't know. Right. That's it. You can't have another position.
But when you're also
let me finish.
Go ahead.
So if you say that this is paranormal effect, this recording, his voice is paranormal, right? And I say it's not. You fail to meet the burden of proof to show that it is paranormal, right? The skeptic doesn't win. This is not Little League baseball. When if one team doesn't score enough, the other guy gets all the points. It's not how it works. If you fail to meet the burden of proof that it's paranormal, then by default, if I don't believe that it is, that is my accusation. That is my claim. And then so for me to have a winning position, I have to prove that it's not. And if I can't do that either, it remains an anomaly and an unknown. But we have to stop operating under this concept that if we don't prove to the skeptic that it's paranormal, that they win. They don't win. In actuality, this is the truth. We only have to be right once to prove that paranormal stuff exists. The person who's the actual skeptic has to be right all of the time. Because if they're wrong once, ta-da.
Great point. That's it. That's a great point. And, the thing is, too, I think the history is also something that we all like, on a certain place. Like say about the Titanic, we're all drawn to the Titanic. Look at their clothes. What did they bring? Where were they when it went down? Did they make it? Did they not make it? Was the body found? We get caught up in that, and that's awesome because I'm a big believer as a mom who raised kids. History is important. If we don't learn from it, we're destined to repeat it. That kind of thing. But also, I like the whole Native American side where I was taught, you owe every step you take to those who took steps before you. If they didn't go through their suffering, their, whatever they had to warrior through, what the starvation, the famine, the depressions, the murder, the sicknesses, we wouldn't be here. So I pay homage to the and reverence and remembering what happened in this structure before, and things like that.
Can I tell you something that what you said is not only important in the context that you're putting it in the structure or the location, it's important vitally in the field of study that we are in, because there are people like the Holtes who make devices, and Steve Holte used to communicate with Frank Sumption from the Frank's box. So like for me, the direct radio voice research I do that predates even the ghost boxes, is an old European method. Those people, the Harsh Fishback couple in Luxembourg, Ernst Sinkowski in Germany, he coined the phrase ITC, instrumental transcommunications. And when people say scientists aren't on board with this stuff, a physicist named the area of study.
Yeah.
He came up with ITC.
Oh, yeah.
So I show reverence for that, because I would be a fool if somebody gave you the smoking gun to win a court case and you go, no, I'm good. I got this. I read some books. You can't, like Marcello Bacci jumped through all these hoops in Italy. They opened his radios. They made him work under conditions. They tested him in every possible way. He was investigated by an Italian group called Il Laboratorio. They did it for 3 years. Everything he could do. RF shielded thing, no radio stuff, the whole nine. Never got caught trickery at all. No trickery. Never took a dime from anybody. So if you don't have familiarity and reverence of these giants upon whose shoulders we now stand, and I'm one of them, because from whatever I think I know or people regard me for knowing, I'm learning from people who put this on a map before it was safe to even put it on a map. That guy jumped through hoops that I don't have to. What do I get, an angry guy on Facebook going, I don't believe in the ghost.
I don't believe
You're
it.
an idiot.
Or that family that got that fantastic footage of the ghost coming from behind the cannon at at Gettysburg or Fredericksburg, or got the one I can't explain, man sitting in Devil's Den during a reenactment for arrest, and the man leans over because he didn't have any enough ammo. He was worried about how much ammo he had.
Yep.
And he's handed some cartridges, some paper cartridges, very much like he would have carried in this reenactment, until he turned around to thank the man and he disappeared.
Right. And so and
apported.
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about? He took it and had it looked at, and it was from the time period. Yep. Explain this to me. You can't explain. Nobody can explain that to me.
You're saying it was an apport?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's an apport of some type, because it was actually from that time. And, this is the thing. It's like, you can't explain it to me, and we're going to sit here and we're going to go through hours and hours of this skeptic or debunker or however you want to say. Right. How did that get from 100 years after? This is, it went through colleges and people that are, archaeologists and things looking at this and time dating this stuff. This is, you can't explain that. But to the believer,
same thing happened.
You don't need any explanation. And for the skeptic, none will suffice. And that's, that was said a long time ago, and that's just the way it is. Because disbelief in gravity is not going to keep you from going down the stairs. What did you just say?
That was Peter James, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, it was. And you picked it right up off the floor where I threw it at you, honey.
Yeah.
I know we're having a blast, and I know we could go on like this forever, but I know you have been in some fantastical historical places. I've heard you speak to them. You and I have talked about them, and I wanted my chat, because these are they not fantastic? This is one live chat here that is phenomenal. Phenomenal. Everybody in here. All different opinions.
You've got also the Holtes and Chris Allgood, and of course Lourdes Gonzalez.
Thank you so much for everybody joining us. And if you wouldn't mind, hit the like. I'm a tiny little thing. We're trying to get. I think we're almost up to 1,100. But I'll tell you what. It's where you go to that good place, the restaurant. You might get it might not be a lot of it, but it's really spectacular. Everybody in here is just absolutely beyond. Everybody comes in with an open mind and a loving way. Everybody talks among themselves. They all support each other. And at this, I'm going to take this time in the show, if you would allow me, Ron.
Yeah.
We've had kind of a little thing going on since last week. I usually do 2 shows a week, so it's a week before I see the chat again. And I got to tell you something. If you're to talk about positive energy, now I can't explain how prayer works. I can't tell you how good energy works. I can tell you all night long. I can tell you testimony that I've had in my own life. A young man that was had a 15% chance to live, till my niece and I walked in and laid hands on his chest, and I said, I want all the energy that was put in this young man's name to come right here, right now. I don't care if it's pagan, Native American, Buddhist. I don't care what it is, Mormon, Catholic, whatever. If you said a good positive thought for my son that day, all of your energy was put right on him. The doctor came in the next morning and said, he's gone up 85%. I can't explain this. I said, I can. Positive energy. Well, everybody in this chat prayed for my sister. She was in the hospital. Her heart was failing. Her organs were failing. She had internal bleeding. And we all came together and we sent our energy in our own way up. And she is now home. Oh, she came home yesterday. And I thank everybody in this chat. She's not out of the woods yet, but by God, she's walking and she's on her own turf. And that always makes you feel better. So again, thank you, everybody who sent up good thoughts and prayers towards Dee. We're doing fine. Keep them coming. And may everyone who needs a little extra love, an extra hug, a little extra light sent your way, so may it be. And the angels know where to put that, your spirit guides. Just reach out and get help. It's out there. But you said a magic name, my friend. So I had a little fun today, and I put together a little video. My chat knows I love to do little videos. It's relaxing. But you have mentioned some places. And, Gettysburg being one of them. We could talk all night about Gettysburg. I love it so. But you've also had some unique experiences in some other places that some of them a while ago, some of them you've gone back to, and some of them I've heard are your favorite. And Ron and I really enjoyed, like I said, watching some of these TV shows you all had. We've all talked about them, Unsolved Mysteries and Sightings and, In Search Ofs and all this. But Ron and I have one of our favorites. And, whether you feel about mediums or psychics or trance mediums, again, you've all heard me talk more than once about Sybil Leek and Ethel Myers with good old Hans Holzer. Yep. But Ron and I also live very close to another famous place, and it will come up in this video. So what I did, often when you're in a podcast, you're talking about a place, you're talking about it, but the chat doesn't know where you're talking about or have any visuals. So I put this together. So we're going to pull them up. And if you've had an experience or been there and a story that pops in your head and you want to tell us a little bit about it, we'll kind of do like a little speed thing of experiences that you've had on some of these wonderful properties. And I also put something in the beginning just for you and I. So if you've never seen the wonderful Peter James at work, if you're from a younger crowd and you never got to sit on the floor in front of a Zenith or in front of grandma's black and white sitting on the old Zenith that doesn't work anymore, and you've huddled just to catch this man.
I just bought one of these.
Oh,
That's a Zenith.
Wonderful. That's absolutely wonderful.
The Zenith vacuum tube radio.
Oh, gosh, right? The memories. So I put this little bit together. It's just a little bit of what Peter James did. And then it's going to go into a couple of the properties that Ron's been on, had experiences on, or found great evidence. And we'll hear a little bit about, kind of do like a little machine gun of some of his experiences in these wonderful properties. So I hope you all enjoy it. If you've never seen Peter James before, here's a little piece of what this wonderful man used to do. Enjoy. You can talk over this too, Ron.
I know nothing about Alcatraz other than what I learned here during the past 2 days that I've been here. And my feelings are strongly that there is an energy here unlike any other that I've ever experienced. This particular one, I feel there was a loss of life here. And this man was a sergeant. And this is an American life that was lost in this particular cell.
What a heart this man had.
I
Yeah.
feel badly. I feel beaten. I don't feel that I lost life from gunfire. I lost life because of neglect. I was neglected. I am responding to, there's a definite sense here that I'm hungry, I'm thirsty. There could not be any crime in the world worth the punishment that I feel this entity endured.
Peter had correctly identified the dank dungeon where military prisoners
I'm
were.
feeling an American here. I'm feeling an American serviceman right here.
Men were kept chained down there, sometimes chained through iron rings to the floor, other times, as we understand, chained with iron rings in the ceiling.
Something is like going through my stomach. It feels like something metal, and my legs are in chains as well. I'm feeling that if I stay here much longer, that I'll die.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. Sophia Temporelli, known as the Ghost Host, she has a show. Her family was close with him, and I think they still have his one leather jacket that he used to wear to the Queen Mary.
Wow.
They
What
were
a
close with
man.
him.
So if you didn't get to see, this is the kind of introduction, let's say, that I started to get from these shows into mediumship, into when I was younger. Of course, I'd already been trying to study it, but these shows made the words in the books I was reading come to life. I was spoiled early on Peter James. Say what you want about her, Sylvia Brown. She did a lot of good work, and she's one of the ones I'm talking about. She came out and she did this, and she said one or two things toward the end there. And that just it shouldn't discount 45 years of work and helping people too,
No.
and Peter was something else, that right there when he did Alcatraz, Ron. I can remember watching it and just being enthralled, the way he'd go in and pick up everything. And then, of course, they'd validate it after the fact. And, people here take all the fun out of it and go, okay, well, they set that up. They did this. They did that. Look, I know a lot of people that
Which they can't prove.
No. And they've seen him live and gone in and helped families and things like this. There's so many very similar like him, but not too many just that had that Peter James air, And like Ron says, this is another one. I'm going to continue this on. You can talk as you want, and I'll stop it. But again,
No
I
problem.
just want to give pictures to the chat of some of the things that you've seen that might look familiar to you. So here it comes.
I wanted to answer
Sure.
your
Go ahead.
chat question from Jackie Cannell.
Go right ahead.
Who's been very kind.
Yes, she is.
You get communication with interdimensional beings, not spirits, or do you see them the same? So one of the things, and I'd mentioned earlier, is that we cannot definitively know with whom we're talking. It is theorized that it's possible that what we're talking to is interdimensional. It could be through some kind of a portal to another planet or realm. It could be the spirits of discarnate entities. It could be something that was never human before.
Yep.
Even there's a fascinating story that there's one of the brilliant people who does ITC work, brilliant people, Tim Woolworth, has a story when he got a vocal recording of somebody whose voice he matched to a friend who lived in another state and wasn't dead. So if you ascribe to the possibilities of astral projection, out of body, near death experience, and a lot of what we think, if our soul, our luminous essence, is what energy cannot be created or destroyed, right? And if it has to move on to somewhere, then we believe maybe we're communicating with consciousness. And if you think it's consciousness, that would explain why sometimes you get answers before you finish questions on a recording. That would explain why you could get the voice of someone who wasn't dead yet, because if they were in a dream state, they might have been out of their body, for one. And with the greater knowledge of the whole, collective consciousness, and as Rupert Sheldrake said, the morphogenic fields where we're dialed into it, that is a strong possibility to explain all of this stuff. We don't definitively know, and like I said, I don't know if we will, but there are some mediums who have done fantastic work. Real quick, if I can say too, one of the things in European history with regards to psychical phenomena, that they frowned on, and I know people do it here now because it's your time is money and your services are worth something. So if you charge for a reading, let's say, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But
Nope,
they
me
frowned
either.
they frowned on it there to a certain degree. At least some people did, because they felt like as soon as you put some kind of financial gain or something like that into the equation, you create the impetus to perform.
Right.
And because it's not an exact 100% thing that works all the time, there were instances when very reputable psychics did stage things because they needed to step up at a certain moment. And then there were other instances because Harry Houdini was known for trying to catch all these psychics out there and expose them, but he also got caught framing one. So
And there's all that.
it's
Anytime you have the human element in there, and then you're talking about having the human element that's been changed from their limited existence, in body, and then come out of body and add an unknown amount of abilities that we may or may not achieve once we change that energy. There's so many question marks here. So that's again why I think I always settled on the what if, or the why, or the why not, or the I don't know. Who am I to say that Bigfoot doesn't exist?
That's brilliant to do that, because Eric von Daniken, who's known for Chariots of the Gods and all the ancient alien stuff, he got accused of saying that aliens did this, aliens did that, and he goes, if you look at my book, he goes several times, he said, what if they did this? Could you imagine if they had done that? What if this? What if? And that's what he did. Because there's enough evidence to think it, but obviously it's difficult to prove it.
Right. Right. I've got Anthony here, and he said something wonderful. Peter James on sightings at Sally House, Homeland Haunting, started me to start my Seekers Club for the Paranormal in 1996. Now, see, Peter James would have loved that, because he was all about that. Why not? What if? And this is a miracle. When the guys came out, do you remember the Polaroid pictures with the writing?
Yeah, the ghostwriter case.
They tried everything they could to debunk that, in a sealed this and this. And you've got all these, these scientists and engineer types sitting right now. My brother was one of these. He went to MIT, worked on the Hubble telescope. He was one of those guys that everything was, prove it. Or we'd have these conversations. We didn't agree on everything, but we agreed that both of our possibilities and both sides could work. Even if it was an argument on the new I keep bringing up Zenith tonight. I don't know what that's about, but I can remember seeing in the 70s on the the commercials of the TVs, and we would have a conversation at the dinner table about, well, are you telling me the TV they're selling me is better than the TV I have? It's only going to show me as good as the TV I'm looking at it on. It doesn't matter that the TV, they're saying, look at how good the picture is. It's only going to be as good as the one I'm looking through. We'd have these, point. But we'd have these. I was like 17 and we're having these conversations, but I was the only one at the table he would talk to, even though I was the youngest, because I gave the possibilities of explain to me how you think that 2 inches that the salesman is pointing to on my TV is going to be brighter spot on my television because it's a better TV if I'm looking through a shitty television. So if a skeptic or if you're angry at something, most people are angry at something they don't understand. They're angry at something that maybe they're scared of and they don't want to admit they're scared, or they don't understand and they're scared. It's like a bing bang boom with them, and that's fine. But we're over here going, wow, look at how cool this is, or look at that, with the ability that this energy that's changed, whether it's human or never was human, because there are entities out there for sure, and we can hopefully we'll be able to get that in here, because I for sure want to talk about that. But that's the thing, we don't know. And I think a lot of these shows and everything gave us that wonderment. They gave us that history, and they gave us that ability to ask, why not? Why not? Now,
absolutely.
You mentioned the Queen Mary, and I want to definitely get because you've been there and I know you dearly love it. So for the chat who hasn't seen anything, I'm just going to go ahead and talk over this, Ron, the way you want to, and I'll stop it where you want to, because it's basically Peter James was very into the Queen Mary, and he did tours there. Did he not, Ron?
He ran that it was like a home base for him for quite some time. There, by the way, on the ghostwriter thing, we had we had which I'm drawing a blank on his name now. Um, Hang on a second. First of all, there's a book about the Ghost Rider, the Polaroid Ghost.
Okay.
That's called Ghost Rider by
Mm-hmm.
Joe Augustine.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great book. It does explain it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to get
They would
John.
basically, for the chat that people in the chat that don't know, there was basically in the 70s, there was a family that felt a presence in the house, I believe. Something started up with them taking a picture, and at first the ghost actually showed up with a face and everything and kind of a misty, kind of milky look on a Polaroid picture. Now, a Polaroid picture was something that instantly came out of a Polaroid. I can't believe I got to explain a Polaroid. But, you know,
Yeah.
in 50 years, they won't know what we're doing on a laptop. So, you know, it would come out automatically, and then you'd have to shake it like the, you know, like the Black Eyed Peas or whoever it was that did that, shake it like a Polaroid picture, and then it would come
Andre
out.
3000.
There you go, and it would have writing. So they would ask a question, and it would write in this misty kind of cottony look, and nobody
Yeah,
could figure out how they
ectoplasm.
were doing it. Yeah,
They
and
believed it was ectoplasm.
direct
We
answers.
actually had Bill Murphy and John Huckert. Huckert was one of the two Johns who lived in the house at the time. And they were there, and they were taking the Polaroid photos when it started, and they were able to do it for quite some time after that. And then I think that the film that Polaroid made, that they were capturing it on it, if it was a certain specific type, they couldn't get the film anymore. Polaroid wouldn't disclose what the chemical makeup of the film was, and I don't think it happened. But there were also, from what they told me, Bill Murphy from Fact or Fake, fantastic guy. I talked to him at length a few times. He sent me the book. Him and actually John Huckert did. There were, I think, two other instances in the different parts of the world where that same phenomenon happened, where they believe it was manipulating the ectoplasm to write it, and it was interesting. It said its name was Wright, WRIGHT.
GHT.
And then later on, they discovered that the spirit, that I guess somebody who had been in that house before, I don't want to give the whole story away, name was John Wright.
There you go.
And the reason he went with Wright is because if it said John, there were two Johns in the household.
Right.
Maybe he's talking about me.
Right. Perfect point. Perfect point. And that's exactly it. So now you don't even have, you've got somebody that found the ability to write on whatever that was in the Polaroid. It made it possible for him to manipulate it. It was able to figure it out. Doesn't mean the next ghost can do that. There could be a ghost in that house that doesn't know how to do that. Maybe all they can do is knock on the wall, or, you know, make the doorbell ring, or maybe they can send text through a phone now. Or they can manipulate, give you emails. We're hearing lots of that and all these different things. So the more electronics and things that they are able to figure out how to manipulate, the more of these things that we're going to get, you know. Different things.
A lot of psychics in the early 1900s were told through readings of the advent of electronic communication. Every device that's ever recorded sound, magnetic wires, reel-to-reels, you name it, has gotten anomalous voices that should not have been there. Every one of them. And in Europe, some of the most compelling stuff that ever came through was phone calls on lines that had no phone calls coming in on, like landlines, fax machines, computers before they were networked. The harsh fishbacks in Luxembourg got evidence that was stunning, unparalleled, with technologies like fax machines and unnetworked computers. Mark Macy from Colorado, one of the best ITC people who's done this, with photography-wise and audio stuff, he got a phone call from one of the pioneers of EVP, Konstantin Radovay. Why is that important? Because Radovay was dead for 20 years when that call came in.
Right.
And the voice matched his vocal spot on.
Now, how are you going to do that? I mean, that's just, it's crazy. Now, in Queen Mary, I know that Peter James had a lot to do with that. So if you're just being introduced to Peter James, multiple books, multiple videos on YouTube, please go watch them. There's a whole thing free on YouTube that somebody has collabed. Just put Sightings Peter James in there, and you can watch all of his trips to Alcatraz. He's famous for going through, again, the Queen Mary and talking to, what's the young girl's name in the pool that everybody was talking about in the footstep?
Jackie the Ghost Girl. There are people contemporarily who were trying to say on one of the shows one time that were trying to say that it was a kid Not really. It was
Mm-hmm.
something demonic, using the whole guises as a kid thing.
Mm-hmm. Who
I don't
knows?
think I don't think Peter believed that, but
I know. I think Peter would have picked that up because Peter picked up on feeling, and that's why one of the reasons why I think all of these pieces of equipment, whether it's your own equipment that you were born with and developed over, you were lucky enough. Some people are gifted with an ability to understand their gift better. That's why some are stronger than others. Some people are just on intuition, and I beg to differ with anybody who says a mother's intuition that knows her child's in danger at the bus stop and runs out there and stops it. That's not some form of connecting into this wonderful world that we don't understand. It's just as valid as Peter picking up a whole conversation or being able to explain what that man was going through in that cell, being chained to that wall, and how he died. And he didn't go into in the episode whether that ghost was stuck there or if it was just residual of the feelings he left behind. He didn't get into all of that, but he did pick them up. And that's one great thing about when you're a good psychic medium like that. Now, what happened to you? If you could give us an experience there. What about the Queen Mary? What about the feeling? Here's the hallway right outside the elevator. What do you want to tell us about Queen Mary?
Well, first let me say that I was looking in the chat too. Your chat is
Okay.
awesome, Chris.
Yeah.
Chris Allgood, talking about his experiences there with
The wet floor.
2 times he got the wet floor, the little blonde girl. Chris
Yep.
Chris Allgood is about as good as it gets with
Hey,
situational
Chris.
awareness at an investigation. He is so attuned to his environment, and he's so gifted, and he's quite sensitive. He's your GPS for ghost proximity sensing.
Yeah.
That's him.
Yeah, that's very cool. I see that's all part of it. That's all part of it.
He's very attuned. And an amazing eye for evidence assessment too. One of the best I've ever seen, honestly. So for me, for the Queen Mary, I've had in a little over 10 years maybe of doing this, I've had 2 photo captures that are unbelievably crazy. In 10 years, 2 fixed. So for people who are looking at the odds and how frequently this stuff happens, 2. I got them both at the Queen Mary. One of them was in the approach to the engine, the boiler room, boiler room number 3. We were coming out of the engine room into a big open gallery that used to be a boiler room years and years and years ago. And the website oversold tickets to the tour, so the guy knew me and the person I was with. He said, "You heard my spiel, walk ahead." So we walked ahead. So there were 39 people looking at the same door we were. The only person who wasn't looking that way was the guy who was doing the tour, Matthew Schultz, Para Explorer Project, who's amazing. One of the best running a public event I've ever seen. And so he was talking to them. Everybody else was looking the same way we were. And I took a picture of the approach to the boiler room, and one of the photos of the doorway, the 2 double doors, which are flush, there's a push handle on the inside, but not on the side we were looking at. And there's this full hooded robed shadow figure that looks like a Grim Reaper filling this probably somewhere in the ballpark a 7-foot doorway. Did not see it at the time. It's casting shadow. It's partly opaque. If there was anybody standing there with a black robe or what, I would have seen him.
You would have saw
I
him.
wouldn't have taken a picture. Absolutely not.
Absolutely amazing. Well,
That
I mean,
was
you just look down
2013.
this hall. You look down this hallway, and I mean, just I get kind of the Shining vibes here. But any hallway you ever walk down in hotels like that, you get that thing where the door's going to open up at any time. Anything could be around the corner. So I mean, it's
People
an
take
amazing
photos.
place.
They take these photos down these hallways at the Queen Mary a lot. They have for years because they will get oftentimes something peering out of one of the
Oh
doors
gosh, yeah,
that are set in, or something at the end of the hallway that they didn't see. That's the
Now
Glen Tavern Inn.
Here's another one that you talk about quite often, and you
Glen
just
Tavern Inn.
Yep.
Great
What
place.
do you want to tell us about that?
That's the place that I fell in love with ITC. I was there with Debbie Constantino, Chad Lindbergh, from one of the actors from Fast and the Furious. He also did a show with John L. Tenney. And there were 30-something people on the 3rd floor doing a spirit box session, and everybody introduced themselves. And when it got to the last couple people, Debbie said who she was, and then Chad goes, "And I'm Chad." And about 15 seconds later of just with the spirit box, it goes very clearly, "I know Chad." And I went, "What is he doing and where do I get one of those?
Yeah.
And from that point forward, I was like, I need to do this ghost box stuff because I don't know how the hell that happened, but there's no way a DJ on a radio station that is sweeping through said, I know Chad from a hallway. How'd they hear him? I'm like, no, I have to get one of those.
Amazing. Glen Tavern, again, another place with so much rich history. And it just has one of those, come and see what I have. Look at this beautiful hall. Look at this. Look at this room. Something about the dark wood. I just love dark wood and stuff like that. So there you go, chat. Here comes one of my favorites. Look at
Morris
here.
Jamel.
Now
Morris
this
Jamel
one,
Mansion. This is literally if I walked straight east across the Hudson River, I would arrive at that place. I'm literally 10-15 minutes from this place.
Yep. So here it is. I gave you a couple of good shots. Now I'm going to cut it off and talk a little bit with Ron about this because he's had some great experiences here. Like he said, it's not very far from either one of us. No. When I first dug into this, my first, believe it or not, I was sitting in Belmar, New Jersey. I was probably 16. And again, it was in a book by Hans Holzer.
Oh, nice. Now,
Hans Holzer, it's right here in the book I showed you earlier in Ghosts I've Met. And the whole story is on an episode I re-released just for this Halloween. It's called Truly Ghostly. And I go through the whole thing. I give you the history that I can pull up readily, available to anybody that wants to pull up on the Morris Jamel Mansion. And you're going to hear Ron explain a little bit, too, about the history as far as some very famous people. But the part I was focusing on was the way Hans went in there, and he did go in with that time Sybil Leek, and he was called in because there was a small group of children on a field trip. Yes. And they arrived early at the Malcolm Jamal Mansion. Now, if you can see right here, I'm going to run it back so you guys can see this balcony. See this balcony? Oh, we're back on the Mary. We're going to get seasick here in a second. There she blows. There she blows right there. That balcony. If you can see it, dadgummit, what have I done?
Right there.
This is the balcony. All the kids were playing. They got there early, so they're playing outside because the curator hadn't got there to open the doors yet. They were that early. And a woman came out of the doors, as you can see them right up in here, and came out of the balconies and told the children to be quiet and to hush up because they were running around and having a good time. And then went back in, huffed kind of, and went back in. And not long after, the curator finally showed up and opened the doors, and they were all standing, inside. She said, well, we've been standing here because that woman told us, I don't know why she didn't let us in. She told us to be quiet. The kids go in, and as part of the introduction and the tour, they go up to the top of the stairs, and lo and behold, there is this large picture of this woman at the top of the stairs.
Eliza Jamel.
Yep, and there she is, and several of the children pointed up at her and says, "But that's her." Well, that's fine. It was her house, right, Ron? The only problem was she had been dead for about 100 years.
Yeah, that was a stronghold for General Washington at one point because they were able to see the Palisades of New Jersey, all of Manhattan Island, and more from that elevation. Before there were obviously all the big buildings and stuff blocking the view. It's a beautiful place. It is definitely an active location for sure. We've gotten some really cool audible evidence out of that location. We haven't been back in a while. I actually would have loved to go back there again. It is probably the closest location mileage-wise to where I live in New Jersey.
Yeah, and it is so rich with stuff now. Aaron Burr, the story, I loosely know a little bit about the history. I knew it better, when I had to freshly write it down. But just off the top of my memory, Eliza was a lady who was born to a prostitute, was she not? And she was raised up and told early, you got to fight for what you want to get. And I don't fault her for that. She pretended a little bit to be sick, like she was basically she told a fib to Stephen Jamel that she was going to die, so he would marry her. Now, how she pulled off, well, I'm not dying now. I don't know how that got pulled off, and I don't pretend to understand it. But eventually, I guess he forgave her, and they had one of those back and forth relationships where she was a socialite and he just wanted to be left alone and make money. And that worked well for a while until I think she got her sights on someone else, and there was a bit of controversy. Stephen Jumel basically died in an accident. Is this how you've heard it, Ron?
Yeah.
In a carriage accident, fell back or was pushed, believing whose story you want to listen to here, and fell on a pitchfork, and he didn't die immediately from his wounds, was carried back into the house, where it is rumored that it's possible that maybe she didn't care for him the way she should, and she allowed him to bleed to death. Now, if you ask the museum, there's not a lot of this written on the walls on pamphlets. But, again, like I said in the beginning, I found out about this via Hans Holzer and his many trips to the museum,
Right.
and the trances that Sybil Leek was going through. In the book, if you want to read it, it's in, again, Ghosts I've Met, and it's stated, Morris Jamel Mansion is the name of the chapter, where he has a conversation with both Stephen and Eliza, and he's accusing her of removing his bandages and allowing him to bleed to death. Not only that, but in cahoots with the kid who pushed him. I believe it was a servant boy. We don't blame him. No way. And again, this is all speculation and hearsay from two people that are dead, by the way. So, so take it with a grain of salt. But it's interesting because it never really quite died. And you're hearing this after the fact, where Hans Holzer is sitting between communicating and trying to get them to forgive each other. She doesn't want to go cross. She wants to go off with her friend Mary. And he's yelling and very upset that he was treated this way. And It took quite a while to get through it. She then married Aaron Burr, did she not?
I think so.
Right.
I know. Some of the history from there I don't remember because it's been a while since I've
That
been
was
there.
kind of a lackluster thing too. I think she went through his money pretty fast, but she's very determined that this is her house, is she not, Ron? And she haunts it, does all kinds of things. Yeah,
I believe so. I was also told that a great portion, at least part of the Broadway musical Hamilton was written.
Yeah, right there.
In this place.
Now this bed used to belong to Napoleon. And that was the bed that Sybil Leek was laying in, speaking as Stephen Jamal in the bed that he died in, supposedly. It's fascinating. Fascinating.
We were in there one time when we were doing.
There's Hans.
I think we were running Echovox on a Bluetooth speaker, and something came through. I forget that they thought it might have been her. And there was a huge curtain by the one window, and the whole curtain just came, like somebody yanked it down, like the whole curtain came down.
The whole curtain came down. She doesn't like men. She doesn't like people in her bedroom.
That's right.
If you do get something, you can't, like I said, can't assume it's her. Could be a servant, could be somebody came in with somebody else, could be somebody riding in on an investigator, or somebody that was just down the street. You can't just say because it was a female. But people that have stated that they've had multiple communications with her. And I just up here, I put a couple books up that are Hans Holzer. If you really like that kind of stuff, I would highly recommend, if you've never read a Holzer, get one of the books where he goes in and investigates. And one of the reasons I'm really into this was another one. They visited a farmhouse with, I believe, Ethel Myers. Mm-hmm. And Ron, I cannot tell you what she'd go through. Because keep in mind, people, when the trance medium goes through it, a lot of times they feel the pain that the ghost or earthbound spirit is suffering through. And this happened to be a young Civil War soldier that had been hidden in that farmhouse, and the enemy found him and kicked him to death in the kitchen and kicked out his teeth. And that's why they couldn't understand what he was saying. And it just broke my heart. And that's when I started, at a very young age, realizing that if I was going to do this, I was going to do it to help the ghost. This is right now, we're getting into one of Ron's favorite places. He said, out of all of them, you said you thought this was your most haunted. You want to announce where it is?
Yeah, first, real fast, I saw Jackie
Sure.
Canella said that she hung
Go
out on
ahead.
Boulevard East where Hamilton and Bird dueled. I think there's a hula hands over there now that they have
Yeah.
a statue. Nothing cements something's historic place in
Yeah.
our history than a hula hands. Let's
That
be
whole
honest.
yeah, could have been a
Um,
Hooters. Could have been a
that's
Hooters.
that's true. That's true. You make a great point.
Yeah.
Um, so
This one right here.
this place is the most actively haunted place I've been in a decade. That's
Mm-hmm.
the Omen house that David Omen owns.
Mm-hmm.
Him and his father built it. It's the property where the Manson Tate murders in 1969 took place. It is not the house it happened in. That mansion was torn down in 94.
Mm-hmm.
It was subdivided. David and his father built on one of the 4 lots it was divided into. In recent years, I know there was a group of kids, I think there were college kids that like 4 or 5 of them rented out the house next door. I think they also have activity. Um, David's house is the most consistently active place I've been to. Every time I've gone, something notable that if you got that type of an incident in 5 years, you'd be like, wow, remember that time? Stuff like that. Every single time.
I hear he's a fantastic host as well. Here's a picture of David there.
Yeah, he makes food for you. I got to know him so well from doing stuff because I started in Southern California with paranormal investigating that when Lourdes and I would go back, I would say, hey, let me know if you have an event because I'd like to bring her. And he's like, just come over. We'll have dinner. And then he let us run through the house till like 4 o'clock in the morning. He's got cameras running everywhere, capturing stuff. I'll give you a quick story or two. The first time I ever went there before I moved back here to New Jersey, I was like 7 of us were talking to David at the bar on the first floor. You walk in on the first floor, then second is below, third is below that.
Right.
And we're asking for directions to the one exposed dirt room downstairs because I've never been there before. And while he was telling us, he had a picture, a movie poster from a movie he made, House at the End of the Drive, that had a glass front and a big wooden frame around it. And that picture frame came off the wall by itself in slow motion, and we all watched it. Like you would take off a photo, like a picture off a wall, like one hook at a time, and then it started just falling flat forward. That was my first time ever being at the house.
Wow.
I did a spirit box session there one time in the 3rd floor bottom basement room. David goes, oh yeah, follow Ron. He's a spirit box guy. Go follow him around. So I'm running this thing for 20 minutes going, nothing. I look like an idiot. Nothing. So then I said to the spirit, I said, do I look like the person with the world's crappiest radio listening to static? And then a voice goes, you think?
Wow.
And then everybody laughed.
Wow.
The last time I was there when Lourdes and I went, 2 things. He had a little cat toy, a little ball that, you touch them and light up.
Yep. Used them. Yep.
It was doing it on command every time we asked. And then at the end of it, we thanked them for doing it. We said, we know you don't owe us to perform. We appreciate that you did something for us. And after I said that, and it's on David Omen's YouTube channel, the video. After I said that, it's a night vision camera. It's like all grayed out. He had a little toy keyboard at the opposite end of the room on the bar. And when I thanked them for doing the cat toy thing, they played a jingle on the keyboard. Like nobody was in the room to press the keys, but it played a little jingle. The last time we were there was when Charles Manson was on his deathbed. It was around November the one year. I think he hadn't died yet, but he was just about there. I never asked about Manson and Tate when I would go to the house. I would always let the house yield what it did. But this particular time, it was very newsworthy. So I said, hey, when he passes on, crosses over, whatever, what happens to Charles Manson? Is he forgiven? What happens? And we got a voice that came out of the, I think it was a spirit box, and it goes, we want him. Ooh. And I went, no further questions.
No further questions. We want him. Yeah,
Yeah.
see, now, again, we all goof around and we say things like, again, the shows, the movies, the stuff. And we've talked many times on this chat what movies got it right. And I always harken back to Abbott and Costello, The Time of Their Lives. Who else do you need but Abbott and Costello to tell you like it is? They got it right in 1938. I don't know if you ever saw this movie, but again, it had a little something to do with Washington. It was about the revolution. They were soldiers that got caught and cursed because they were told that they were traitors when they were not. They were patriots, and they fought back. They had a reason to stay. They felt stuck in their own little cage that was built for their own self, that they kind of, manifested their own. But again, with somebody else's, I believe in, curses. I believe in the power of suggestion of a curse. I believe that you can hurt yourself just suggesting, by just somebody going like this. You can do that. But I also believe there's something to it, whether it's chaos magic or manipulating energy or thought forms. I believe that words have power. I believe that, some people say, that's why they call it spelling. You're doing this, you're doing that. I believe there's a lot of things that we used to lean back for. I'm an herbalist, right? And I was raised Native American, and, we looked at things a little bit different, even from how we treated nature. I mean, I was told stories of, by, I put him on here a couple weeks ago. It was called the Cherokee Custom Keeper. What a beautiful title to have. I'm the keeper of our customs. I keep our traditions alive. We don't want to be extinct. Beautiful. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what ghosts are saying too. Hey, I'm here. I'm here. I'm still here. I don't know why I'm still here, maybe. I don't know but if you can hear me, this is why mediums and psychics and people with abilities, all ranging differently. They're not all the same. Just like ghosts, just like we're not the same. We're similar, but we're different. We see things different from different vantage points, and so do ghosts. They're people. Ghosts were people too. So when we try to jumble all of that, I can't understand the line, especially the express lane, at the local shop and stop. Or the local, ShopRite or the Walmart. Have you seen the people in Walmart lately? I can't explain that. So, when people die, they don't change, it seems, Ron, until after they've crossed. What happens? I don't know. But I've had animals come back who died with a limp, and they don't have a limp anymore when they pad across the bed. They're not doing the 1, 2, 3 hop. They're doing the walk. 3 days after I just put them in the ground, they came back just to let me know I'm healed. And that's a simple little thing that's okay with me. I saw it that way. It made me feel better. Why not? You could bring CNBC and CNN and, everybody you wanted from the past, every parapsychologist, Peter, Underwood, everybody, bring them all in. And everybody would see those cat prints across that bed as different. How do I know it's my cat? How do I know it's not the neighbor's cat that died and just got the wrong house? How do I know it's a cat? How do I know it's not my mind making holes because I'm in such grief I'm willing it to be so? Any and all of these things can be true, but here's the kicker. I think a lot of these things can all be true at the same time. Why does one thing have to be right? Why can't it all be connected? Why can't it all be a wonderment, a mystery of this is our life, this is our journey, and we're just trying to understand each other along the way. But honest to God, we can't explain the people that we're sharing air with right now, let alone now you put them through some type of a horrible death, whether it be a stroke or a heart attack or an accident or an overdose or a murder.
All right.
You've added trauma to the mix. You've added a change in energy to the mix. And then you're wondering, what does that person's essence, their soul essence, their human being essence, that energy, what does that think happened? All those are different perspectives. All those are different vantage points. Now try to get them all in a room and get everybody to agree on one thing and one piece of evidence and what that one piece of help me or get out or screw you or whatever it says comes over. And that's, I think, the only thing that bugs me in this whole paranormal world. I can handle all of it. But the one person who says because they got help me, it means that little Janie that died from cholera in whatever is the one haunting the house, and you don't know any of that.
No, you can't definitively know a lot of that stuff too. We have, and this is something that hurts the field too, that we have a propensity to fill in the blanks when we don't have the whole story, instead of being comfortable with not knowing. And because people do that stuff, the people who don't buy into the authenticity of anything paranormal will go to that and be like, well, But the thing is that if somebody fakes something, there are frauds. There are people who will do that for their 15 minutes. But you can't discredit everybody. That's like if
No.
somebody goes into the hospital thinking they have a heart attack and it turns out just to be gas. That the next 20 people who come in having heart attacks, you go, no, just let him fart. He'll be
Yeah.
fine.
And
Just let
that's
him
just
fart.
it. And
Press on
that's
his
just
no, you
it.
can't do that. You have to look at every instance as its own set of circumstances and assess it accordingly. They did tests with testing telepathy and clairaudience and clairvoyance. They did fascinating where they actually tried to block telepathy with somebody standing inside a huge like Faraday cage on a floor that was, I think, made out of glass, something that wouldn't conduct. And they had trouble with the efficacy of the method sending messages to the person inside the Faraday cage. When they put the same cage outside on exposed dirt, and then they put a metal rod inside into the dirt, and then one on the outside into the dirt, they saw the accuracy and the efficacy of the method improve measurably. So there's something to all this, and we need to look at all the data. That's one of the problems
do.
too, is that some of the data gets shelved. It's in a lot of these studies they call it the file drawer problem, where every experiment, every test has a level of perceived chance. Right, 1 in 100 you might just guess by chance, whatever the odds are. And so when somebody's not completely vested in paranormal research, but they're trying it or testing it, or they're not sure about it, and they get results that are just above chance, it's not enough for them to come forward and print the paper, release the study, make a thing of it. So what they do is they put it in the file drawer and they let it go, because it was above chance, but it wasn't that much. So But the problem is when you're looking at the cross section of all the data, everything that is above chance matters. But you're not getting all that information because that stuff got shelved. It got filed away. So you're really not getting the full picture.
And the person also that's going into the house, say the Jamel Mansion, we're talking about a span of, gosh, Holzler did that back in what? I'm going to venture to say late 60s. I could be off on that. So Ron's still going back. It's 2021, 20.
Right.
We're still going back. So imagine, if you will, a base, or wouldn't it be great if, one of these places had something like a time capsule of all the different people that went in there, and everybody had, the paranormal, KSPS got this, and para whatever got this, and you match it up, because I wonder sometimes how these ghosts feel that we go in there, and I know a lot of them, I say I know, but I mean that figuratively. I believe at this time in my life, my theory is that, that's it, right? Until it changes, something can happen 5 minutes from now, it changes the whole thing.
Yeah,
It's like watching one of those forensic court things back in the 80s where they first came out really banging, and you think you got that poor slob that they're trying to pin the murder of his wife on. You're about ready to hang the dude till that last 5 minutes when that one piece of evidence comes in and flips the whole thing. It wasn't him, it was the neighbor the whole time, or the gardener the whole time, and you would have, if you were on the jury, you would have voted guilty. It's the same thing with the paranormal. It's the same thing. It's like, I believe that woman, that medium, without me asking, without being prompted in this direction, gave me a memory that I had locked away forever when I was looking for that letter that never came, that wasn't there. It was so traumatic for me, I blocked it. Same as a soldier with PTSD that lost a brother or had an experience, blocks it until he hears the car backfire, or any of these things. Our minds are amazing things. We don't even understand what goes on in our own brain, our own perception. We believe that what we're seeing is what our brain is telling. But I've had recent stuff within my family working with the brain injury and how the brain works and how that brain will, if it can't find the pattern, very much like a car that can't find, there's an accident, it can't go the way it usually goes, it has to find a new route. Well, the brain will find a new route. So, your eyes and your brain has to be in sync. Ron's ideas of going in there, he has to be in sync with the other people in the group. They all have to understand the equipment or understand each other and trust that this one understands the equipment and trust that what he's saying is how it went down and put all that together. Well, if we did that in the world of paranormal all together, we could put maybe some of these things and get some answers. But it's been my experience, even the dead that come back won't tell us all the secrets. Maybe they can't. Maybe they don't know them. Maybe we're not supposed to know. Maybe it's like a mystery that we are supposed to unravel as our minds and perceptions can handle the truth. Because I've seen that change in the paranormal as well. Have you ever gotten that where you show somebody a picture and they either see it right away or they don't? But then maybe that same piece of evidence 10 years down the line, after that person has developed and their consciousness is raised, it allows them, their eyes allow their brain to see what was in that picture. And I find that just amazing. I find that fascinating because I've seen people change over the same piece of evidence. Has that ever happened to you with an EVP? That I know you and Lourdes were talking in another interview where you were both hearing something differently. The same piece never changed, and then eventually changed over to it. Do you think that was a perception change in the person who changed that, or was it the power of suggestion that the other person was hearing it?
I think it's foolish to say that it can't be all those things, because you don't get like
You don't know.
you don't get a progress bar telling you which one of those biases is pushing the envelope more than the others. It could be power of suggestion. I've heard something different than she heard, and then somebody played it back, and then I go, "Oh, you heard that? Okay, yeah, now I hear that now." Here's the cool thing, though, from a technical side, right? If you have those kind of discussions, or even if it's a Class B EVP or a vocal from a ghost box or something, it's not slammed on Class A when what it says is undeniable. You can, through WavePad, Audacity, any of these Adobe, they all do it. You can do what's called a voice print, where you can say the words as close to matching the cadence as you can to what you thought you heard. And then the spectrograph on the screen, you can match what's called a voice print. And if what you see in the spectrograph matches between what you said, I thought I heard, there it is, and then you look at the recording, and there it is, you thought you heard. If those things match like a fingerprint, then that is probably what you heard. And you could, it's painstaking. It's not something you just do like that necessarily. You actually have to take the time to do the extra step, but it can settle a lot of those disagreements. It can give you a conclusion to something that maybe you're not sure what it's saying. And that's a big thing between when everybody who's got good EVPs will say Class A. Class A gets thrown around almost as much as WebMD throws around headache. Right? It's not, if it's Class A, it says here it is. Like that's 99% of people are hearing here it is. You always have that, maybe that 1%. But if it's debatable, but it's still very good quality, but it could be, that's Class B, even though it doesn't seem like it because of the vocal is anomalous and it's really, really, got tone and everything else. How intelligible and how easy it is to discern what's being said is the difference to me. And I didn't make up the grading system, but that's my understanding of how it's supposed to work. Is if it's undeniable what it says and that it shouldn't be there, that's A.
Exactly. And I know a lot of these things can be pushed one way or the other, but our whole point tonight with sitting with Ron is that he is open-minded. He does have the knowledge behind the tech. And, again, so two people can sit down and talk about this wonderful subject for almost 2.5 hours now, Ron, and it seems like 10 minutes with a wonderful chat that's asking fantastic questions, great input, so many great people you brought with you, Ron, and so many fantastic groups. We have so many people in here that are part of a group, and they go back and they think about these ideas and toss them back and forth. What Ron and I are also saying is there's no really right and wrong in this. The only right and wrong I believe that in this is putting down somebody because they're not doing it like you, or they have a different approach to something. And
Code of conduct.
Yeah, and I think the way we really learn is by listening to everybody and seeing if our brains can find that different path to that thing, or our eyes can see that different vantage point through somebody else's. And it's not just in the paranormal world, I think it's in the whole world, because if we can understand the dead, we for sure as hell can try a little harder to understand the people at Walmart. And
Yeah.
maybe can you imagine? It's like maybe we should just approach them like we do the paranormal. Would you like to say something? Say something into this little recorder I've got here, or make the light turn red. Turn the flashlight on and off if you're going to get done with your stupid groceries, and and go through the line a little faster, or whatever. But it does seem silly, but that's what we're doing. We're talking to people who once lived, unless you're talking about something that was never human. And Ron and I were going to get into a big thing on that, but what I'm going to do tonight after 2.5 hours is ask Ron if he would be kind enough to come back, and we can both talk a little bit about, we've talked about the tech side and a little bit of the history and stuff. I'd love to get into the whole how do we use our light as live energy beings now to fight against a lot of the darknesses out there. Ron and I both had experiences where we've dealt with things that were either human and just negative people that just hadn't changed, and because they kept all their earthly stuff and they're just a nasty person who happens to be a ghost, or if it's something a little bit stronger, a little bit more ancient, like whether it might be something that was never human. There's many entities out there, or something like the jinn. I know Ron is very interested in that type of thing too. Yeah. So maybe we can come back on and do a whole show on something like that, and tell people again how, I believe, as many shamans and stuff believe, and there's many cultures that believe that you have to take a little walk through the darkness before you can appreciate the light sometimes. I think that's probably why we go through bad things. It's horrible to go through them, but you're better on the other side somehow. You're wiser, stronger, you know what you can go through. And I think the paranormal puts us through stuff like that too, especially when you're dealing with entities that are so smart and so in tune with what they're doing that they come to visit you before you go to a case, to ward you off. So what do you think about that, Ron? Will you come back on and talk to this wonderful chat again?
Absolutely would come back on and talk to this wonderful chat again. And your wonderful self too.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate you spending so much time with us. Can you please give us, I know my mods have been dropping links and stuff, but
yeah, that was awesome.
You've got a book coming. I told you they were good. Book coming out and everything else. And again, just briefly tell us where to get in touch with you if you want to see some of your work. Is that on your YouTube channel, or tell us about that?
Yep, the YouTube channel is Gonyak Paranormal. GonyakParanormal.com is our website. Okay. Gonyak Paranormal is also the YouTube channel. Is GONYAC, Gonyak Paranormal, and I have the book that just got picked up by Beyond the Fray Publishing. Mm-hmm. So
congratulations!
I'm not sure. Thank you. I'm not sure how soon it's going to be coming out. We just got the ball rolling, but I'm excited about it. I'm already working on another one, and. Also, I'm trying to make more appearances at the New Jersey Para-Unity Expo. I ran an ITC exhibit. Yeah, it's fantastic. John Ruggiero and Chris Theron do a phenomenal job. They asked me, and I was honored to do an ITC exhibit. So I ran a whole room called ITC, the Dead Air Experience, and we did experiments with the people there. We gave people the chance to capture evidence at the expo, not just walk through and look at stuff. Wow. I wanted to do something a little bit different, so we made it interactive. I'm hoping that perhaps at Gettysburg, I'd be able to bring that same thing to them.
I'm sure the Barrys would love that. And I know something else that they would love too, and I certainly can't speak for them, but I'm trying to get as many people together to set up separate little mini things over at the Hoover House, because it's on the Airbnb. You can go on there and you can look at the room.
Yep.
They actually have a room there named after Hans Hosler. Get with Pamela and Steve Barry, or go on the site, look for 1912 Hoover House. But it would be great to know when you're going, Ron. I would love to go. Only, let's make a caravan. Let's do it, because you're going to have wonderful people. Like, Dave's going to be there. Dave and Jim from KSPS. You've got the Barrys there. Usually, if we put something up and say everybody's getting a room, we're going to investigate tonight. Antietam's right there. Harper's Ferry's right there. Gettysburg. Let's name it. I've got Rob Guttrow coming. We're setting up the same type of thing to just go, because it's a wonderful place. They've done a great job restoring it, but it happens to be what I think, and I don't know if you're coming across another one of these, but I call it, how there could be a vortex within a place, and it just seems to gather all the lost and more negative wanderers, let's say. Whereas this place, because of the ability that they have, first of all, to put their light out, their intent, their what they want to do. Everything is restoration, respect, history, and spirit. Bring all this love light here. They've created a love light vortex there. So now the spirits that are attached and come back and forth visiting, bring in others that have not been able to connect for the guests they know are coming days before.
Wow.
So there'd be sitting there to be some great, because this just happened last week. I sent a friend there. Basically, if you could visualize, there's an older couple sitting somewhere in the house, probably at the bar or in one of the chairs, one of these lovely rooms Pamela's redone, and sitting here. What are you doing? We're waiting for our granddaughter. She's going to be here in 2 days. Basically, that's how it goes down. And they had a wonderful there was a couple of things that happened. She wasn't going to go, and things kept happening, making her go. You tell me the spirit world doesn't work like this, and that's a wonderful, amazing thing to me. And I think people keep missing in some cases, unless we do these shows, unless this wonderful chat goes out and talks to the people that they're talking about, putting their light out in the world the way they do. We're going to lose it. We're going to throw the baby out with the bathwater, trying to keep pointing at all these things that say aren't true. Let's bask in the wonderment of it all, I say. How about that, Ron?
Yeah, I agree. I think intent has a lot to do with what we get and why we do it.
There you go. So how about that, folks? We're going to have Ron back. Thank you so much, Ron, for spending so much time with us. And, what a wonderful conversation. And anytime you want to come on and bring Lourdes on with you, we'll talk about investigation or whatever. But we'll get you back on sometime right before Christmas. So leave us a night open, okay?
Absolutely.
I'd like to thank everybody in the chat tonight. Melissa, hi. Gray, thank you so much. Patriot, I'm glad you made it. Thank you so much for your wonderful participation, your great questions. Mods for the links and keeping our chat nice and clean and positive and putting all that love light out there. So everybody, listen up. Thanks again. We got Ron Yacovetti with us tonight. I hope we didn't get too much Jersey on you. If we did, forget about it.
Yeah.
Or bite me. Choose which one. Right, Ron?
Thank you, everybody.
Love you, sweetie. Good night, everybody. We got our little outro, and y'all have a wonderful Sunday. Good night.